रे देखा होची हेलो
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So,
okay let's so this is the framework that I had also actually initially given this PDF is just basic framework at a channel le diya hitla so eta last minute revision kariya pai tumu diya hichi otherwise we had already started from this part okay nahi moral absolutism and moral relativism okay so today we are going to begin with utilitarianism देखिए कि यूटिलिटेरियनिज्म रा माने कोन एमिति देखिया गले मु एक्सप्लेन करिथिली टिके टिके बट स्टिल लेट अस go into detail what this means hang on a second okay so utilitarianism comes from the word utility eta हम डिस्कस करथिलु utility माने यूज आमे जहां भी moral ground नबा और moral जहां भी dimension नबा someone's audio is on kindly mute it कार जनकर ऑडियो ऑन अछि म्यूट कर दे moral dimension से सब को हम यूज पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू रे देखिया कि हमर केते यूज राष्ट्र so this is a very narrow view of ethics you can call it but this is also very useful okay in the sense that you can use it in many different ways and you can use it to take some practical decisions we will see how we are going to use it so the main proponents of this theory are Jeremy Bentham he was the one of the founders John Stuart Mill was also one of the proponents of utilitarianism okay if you might have noticed this person is also polity part रे बहुत सारा जगह रे आसे जेएस मिल है ना freedom of speech and expression is John Stuart Mill okay so let us see utilitarianism माने कौन utilitarianism बहुत simply कहूची कि it seeks to ensure what is the aim of utilitarianism the greatest happiness of the greatest number हमें happiness को maximize कर परिया of the maximum number माने कितने लोगों को happiness को हमें maximize कर परिया means हमें सेमितिया decision नबा जहाँ द्वारा most number of people most happy हेबे okay so this is our goal now बर्तमान कथा होची एटा केमती calculate कोन करिया so we will see that the point is utilitarianism is a part of a broader approach of ethics which is known as teleological ethics or consequentialism means teleology comes from telos word mean end यार माने होची end माने end oriented approach माने आमे देखियानी कि आमे जो means जो method टा जाउचे से method टा ठीक कि भूल हमको किसी concern नहीं हमर final goal और end टा ठीक हबार justified दरकार अछि if it is justified then whatever means you are taking that is also justified okay this is the argument so one subset of this approach is utilitarianism there are some other approaches also which fall under teleological or consequential approach we'll see later on utilitarianism is one of this now the point is how will we
sir,
take the decision yes
sir, kindly change the color of
oh
pen.
sorry okay my bad okay so how will we ensure that hang on a second so telos means and okay how will we ensure that that what kind of method or what route will we take to reach that goal so decision will be taken on the basis of what Bentham and Mill call as felicific calculus what is the meaning of felicific calculus felicific means happiness and calculus here means calculator okay. happiness calculator तो बेसिकली पूरा हैप्पीनेस को ऐड करिवे एंड कहबे कि एटा मैक्सिमम प्लस माइनस एमती करा हबो इट्स नॉट एग्जैक्टली लाइक ए कैलकुलेटर दिस इज जस्ट ए कांसेप्ट ओके इट्स एमती किछि कैलकुलेटर डिवाइस नहीं दे जस्ट सेड कि वी हैव टू माने वी हैव टू फाइंड आउट कि मैक्सिमम नंबर ऑफ हैप्पीनेस कोथुर बाहरियो ओके सो यू विल काउंट इट so that means what that means ki suppose you have a moral dilemma ethical dilemma किछि गोटे अछि what is the ethical dilemma suppose the हमर गोटे बहुत ही स्टैंडर्ड एथिकल डिलेमा हला डेवलपमेंट वर्सेस इकोलॉजी एटा हम डिस्कस करथिलु बहुत जगह रे so suppose we have to build maybe a road if you have to build a bridge or we have to build a dam or reservoir तो आमे देखिया कि सेतरे मैक्सिमम लोक कहा को काम रे satisfy होचंदे और हैप्पीनेस तांको पाखरे पहुंचुची so for this if you have to displace a few number of villagers what will the utilitarianist call ସେମାନେ କହିବେ कि देखो डेवलपमेंट जदि मैक्सिमम लोकंकर डेवलपमेंट होची किछि लोक माने इकोलॉजी पई और किछि लोक ट्राइबल्स मान को डिस्प्लेसमेंट पई then that is that what is the number is less this number is more then you should go ahead with the developmental work. As simple as that. Okay. So suppose take another approach. Think of another ethical conflict or ethical dilemma. Suppose what is your dilemma? Dilemma is, if by doing some illegal work you can give benefit to someone. Suppose what happens is that you know that someone deserves some kind of welfare benefit, but they are not able to get it. Now this person says, ki, sir, what you do is you break the rules. You break the rule and you give me this benefit. Then if you see what will happen if I break the rule, who is it harming? This is not harming anyone. No one will get to know, but this will benefit some people. So see, utilitarianism is not evil or anything. Some people have this kind of thinking ki देखियो तमे किछि एमती concept अछि कि utilitarianism means evil, means माने you can do anything based on, see, you can do anything, but that anything is not necessarily evil. Sometimes it may also benefit someone. So आमे arbitrarily rules regulation ए सब जिंस फॉलो करियानी, rather हम देखिया कि end रे हमको कौन करियार अछि. If the end is justified, then whatever you can take approach you can take, that will also be justified. Now someone will say, suppose to save one person, if you are trying to kill three persons, is this justified? No, because if you see, this is the meaning of felicific calculator. आमे यदि felicific calculus रे आमे एटा calculate करिवा, now the life of three is more than life of one. तेणु आमे याकू मारी की याकू बंचे पारिए. So rather utilitarianist माने कहिए कि आमे एमान को बंचे. Okay. So felicific calculus means this कि आमे पूरा you will literally calculate कि whether it is benefiting the maximum number of people. Okay. Now so this means what? This means that end justifies the means. Ei sabu terms and phrases you have to write. Okay. That this is an approach in which end justifies the means. Now if you see what are the pros and cons of this approach, what are the pros? Positive jinsa kono? That is a simplified decision making, correct? It's almost a formulaic method. Formula pakao, answer pao, se bada method. So it is also helpful for rulers or governments. This is a very important point you should always mention. The utilitarianism विषय किसी पचरा ला, you should always mention that, because see, government or even you can write even bureaucrats, this is a very useful approach. We are not saying that always we will take this approach. Don't misunderstand this. हमें कोई नहीं कि सब जगह हमें utilitarian approach ना हो. But sometimes what will happen is that you don't have any choice. Now later on we will see that in many of the cases, suppose you have two different options. Okay. ऑप्शन ए रे किछि लोकन को हार्म होची, किछि लोकन को बेनिफिट होची. ऑप्शन बी रे किछि लोकन को सेंती अगेन हार्म होची, बेनिफिट होची. सो यूजुअली हम पाखरे ଗୋଟେ स्टैंडर्ड रिप्लाई कोन अछि ना, हम मिडिल पाथ नो हमें यांको भी बेनिफिट करिया, समस्त को बेनिफिट करिया, एंड you are giving an ideal approach. Many a times this approach is actually not available, this option is not available. There are not three options, but usually there are only two options. So in that case where you have to take a tough decision, how will you take that decision? There utilitarianism will come to help you. Okay. In fact, many governments and many politicians are bound to go by this thing. They don't have any option. Think of many vote bank politics. Okay. Vote bank politics, kaiki hue. So this is also a version of this majoritarianism, na? In the sense कि हमें maximum लोगों को happiness को इधर देखो जे. Is there any political party currently which will say something against a majority group of the society? They will not say, because they know that at the end of the day, what matters to them is the numbers. So the maximum number, see, 50% भी no, 51% or 49% हेले भी, suppose this person will win, this person will form the government, this person will not form the government. So for them numbers matter. So therefore they do not have this option that ideally you think that you have the middle ground हमें नहीं चला. So in that case you will have to go through or go by utilitarianism. Okay. So it is helpful for rulers or governments to take decision. Again, decision making rate help करे, bureaucrats मान को help करे decision making. Then the third point is that it is a practical approach. It is not an ideal approach. Many times से जो दुईटा ऑप्शन थियो, दुईटा भितर कोटा भी परफेक्ट अप्रोच न थियो. कोटा ही परफेक्ट सॉल्यूशन नो. So you have to take one of them. Okay. Then what is also one of its pros is that it is a collective. It benefits the collective more than the individual. एथुरु देखिए तो जाना पड़छ ना, जहा हले भी if there are multiple people, even if there are two people, they will trump over one person. So individual ऊपरे माने चढ़ी जिवे को माने who are multiple or numerous people, they will rule over the individual. So that means this will also result in what? I mean negative कॉन्स रे देखिया नेगेटिव जिनस रे एथरे कोन हबो इट लीड्स टू मेजोरिटेरियनिज्म मींस मेजॉरिटी ओवर माइनॉरिटी not only majority over individual it will also lead to majority over minority okay. So यार देखिए माने ये दिटा सेम नुह by the way let us see what is the difference majority over individual and majority over minority majority over individual in the sense suppose individual many of the individual fundamental rights they can be in some cases they can be trumped over by sorry directive principles of state policy and many other fundamental rights will not be I mean they will be above some other dpsps okay in polity class you will see which are those fundamental rights but if you are following which approach utilitarianism approach you will say with the utility means maximum number of people so we'll take such kind of decision which will benefit the majority and which benefits the majority directive principle or fundamental rights directive principle of course so you will take such policy decision which will benefit the more number of people okay think of let us take which case suppose the case of privacy you will say ki privacy right to privacy is my individual right under a fundamental right of article 21 correct this has been even said in the different cases puttaswamy case it is said that right to privacy is under this thing but in many cases right to privacy will not apply at all for example in cases of surveillance government surveillance where the surveillance is directly related to national security there can you say no government cannot collect my data government will not allow it why because this is to ensure collective security so here individual right is being trampled this can also be an example of utilitarianism that utility to the more number of people now think of majority versus minority what can be an example of majority versus minority you can simply give an example of ayodhya case verdict okay here also see it's not just a case of majority versus minority there are many legal issues involved but in the end who trumped majority got the verdict minority community they did not get a favorable verdict so we can say this is also an example maybe this was taken on the ground of utilitarian approach correct can you give some other examples of where majority has trumped a minority in india some other examples don't just think from community perspective some other perspective also where majority decision I mean decision has been taken to benefit the majority not the minority
So Mahanadi, Hirakud Dam displacement.
sorry
Hirakud Dam displacement.
yes correct so that is also an example of development versus displacement or ecology that kind of debate okay. That can be an
Sir, no
example
to same-sex marriage.
yes okay you can say that देखो सेम सेक्स मैरिज रे इशू कोन हला कि सेमानको ऑल्दो सुप्रीम कोर्ट जुडिशियली सेमानको बहुत प्रोटेक्शन दोउची फॉर एग्जांपल नवतेज सिंह जौहर केस रे दे सेड ओके ये सब जिंस सब अछि बट गवर्नमेंट इज नॉट गवर्नमेंट ताकू दो नहीं सेम प्रोटेक्शन सेम लेवल ऑफ प्रोटेक्शन इन फैक्ट गवर्नमेंट इज आर्ग्यूइंग इन द कोर्ट कि दिस इज अगेंस्ट आवर इंडियन कल्चर एंड ऑल एंड दे आर actually trying to sort of blockade this growth of liberal values so liberal values को आने दो ना why because government also understands that its vote bank or majority numbers will come from what conservatives okay so most people in india do not want this kind of thing till now okay yet so this can be an example for example you can say in personal laws in many personal laws you will see that still we are not recognizing or giving equal rights to lgbtq communities so this can also be an example you know? So these are all examples of how utilitarianism can lead to majoritarianism what are the other negative parts that is a mechanical approach or cold approach okay. ये जो फेलिसिफिक कैलकुलस कथा हमें कथा हली आमे गोटे गोटे मेकानिकली गोटे कैलकुलेट करके फाइनल रिजल्ट बाहर कर दोजे माने एटा डिवॉइड ऑफ ह्यूमन अप्रोच or devoid of human warmth you can say about like this then second part is for the greater good so you are sacrificing something for the greater good specifically individual rights or freedom the individuals should not have complete right to privacy because it is for the greater good. What is for the greater good? Surveillance. Okay. National security. That it is for the greater good. So this is a standard justification for utilitarian approach. Now another con, and this is one of the major cons of this approach, is that some actions may be categorically wrong. Means the means should be wrong. Okay. Even if end is justified, the means would be wrong. But here you are justifying it on the ground of utilitarianism. Think of what can you say? Think of another example. Suppose population control. Okay. Suppose someone will say that population control is our aim. Then you will say ki if you are a utilitarian, you will say ki if this is the end goal, okay, and it is morally justified, because if you have population control, you have less number of people, then development will improve, or your growth rate will improve. So for a justified end, you will say that whatever means we are taking, that is also justified. So that means now coercive steps or coercive family planning will also be justified. Okay. ଯେମିତି ରାଜୀବ ଗାନ୍ଧୀ ଯେମିତି କରିଥିଲେ, what he did was କି forcefully ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କୁ what he was doing ki forcefully ତାଙ୍କୁ what is the term, जो
Sterile.
नसबंदी को इंग्लिश में कौन sterilization, yes, forceful sterilization program. Okay, हिंदी रे जाको नसबंदी usually कहा जाए. So forceful sterilization program will also be justified. But now we are saying that some actions are categorically wrong, even if the end is justified, population control is justified, but forcing someone to take, or forcing someone to make bodily changes to them, that is categorically wrong. Okay. And that to adults, you are not taking the consent of adults, so that is categorically wrong. By the way, from this phrase actually comes from Kant's approach. Immanuel Kant said that we will study under deontological approach. Okay. And chalo ये part का मैं discuss कर, this is not, this is majoritarianism. Now another point, you see, happiness itself is subjective. Now you are saying कि we will, what will you do? Felicific calculus through रे हमें ताको measure करियो. The point is how will you measure accurately? Okay, that is the point. So what is the issue? कि कहार first कथा ला कि कहार happiness ता important आम पे. Second point is कि whether the intensity of happiness is being taken into account or not. For example, think of this thing. Suppose you are traveling from, let us say, most people are traveling from Odisha to Delhi through this railway network. Okay, so this is a track. Now this track has gone through some cities and all. So now आम ओडिशा लोक मैंने कौन कहे नहीं देखो सिटी विटी थ्रू दे गला बेलू आमको बहुत लेट होची, तो आमे कौन चाहिए, आमे कहे कि आमे डायरेक्ट दिल्ली ऊपर पूरा स्ट्रेट लाइन जाई पहुंचिया. सो एबे जोटा 24 आवर्स लागुची, आमे एमितिया तुम ट्रेन लाइन पकाओ जोटा कि मे बी 10 आवर्स आमे जाई पहुंच जा. सो 10 आवर्स रे पहुंचले हमको मैक्सिमम बेनिफिट का को ओडिशा लोक हबो. बट किछि यूपी बिहार लोक जो माने से रूट रे जाउची बोली समान भी दिल्ली रे पहुंच परछन, दे विल नॉट बी एबल टू एवेल्यूएट इफ इन कॉम्बिनेशन. सपोज ओडिशा और आंध्र प्रदेश एमानकर नंबर सपोज एटा हे गला अधिका काटू यूपी बिहार रो लोकन को. बर्तन कथा होची आमर वेदर आवर हैप्पीनेस इज मोर पैरामाउंट और देयर हैप्पीनेस इज मोर पैरामाउंट. नाउ समान विल से कि अच्छा ओडिशा एंड तेलंगाना आंध्र ए लोक मानकर हैप्पीनेस टा को हमें काहे कि पीक वाली भाबुचे कि एमानकर ही हैप्पीनेस को काहे कि हमें प्राइमेसी दोचे. ओके, सो आर यू एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड कहार हैप्पीनेस टा को हमें एटी देखिया. सो देयर इज नो आंसर. सेकंड पॉइंट इज इंटेंसिटी ऑफ हैप्पीनेस, किए केते लेवल रे खुशी होची, हाउ विल यू कैप्चर इट. आमे जणे जल्दी पहुंची खुशी होची, जणे चलो in any case if they are able to reach Delhi they are happy. Now who is going to judge ki kaharo intensity ta kete happiness ro, and accordingly who will you give primacy to? We don't know. Even utilitarians also don't know. Okay. So this is also a good counter argument that happiness is subjective here, so you cannot take a decision merely based on numbers. And the last and most most important con for this is that the happiness that these utilitarians are calculating, that is also not true happiness. For example, in the sense of Aristotelian sense, who said that happiness should be eudaimonic. Eudaimonia विषय में डिस्कस करते ट्रू हैप्पीनेस हमें डिस्कस करते सॉक्रेटिस जो कहते an unexamined life is not worth living. So in that sense are you calculating in this utilitarian approach? Answer is no. हमें तो बहुत ही मैकेनिकल वे रे आप कैलकुलेट करू छे ना. सो ट्रू हैप्पीनेस को तुम यदि नौ न ताले तुम केमिति कैलकुलेट करि कहि परियो कि कहारो हैप्पीनेस टा इंपोर्टेंट. So these are many of the criticisms of this utilitarian approach. You can add a few more point कि माने एटा narrowly ethical approach. Okay, so these are some phrases you can write, but these are the major pros and cons. Any doubts in this? Doubts? No. Okay, and let us move on to the next approach. So the next approach is actually the opposite of utilitarian approach, and this opposite is known as categorical imperative or deontological ethics. Okay, now what is the meaning of deontology? Deontology means itself or not end. Okay, this is not end but the means. And categorical imperative, we'll see towards the end what this means, categorical imperative. So what is Kant saying? Kant is saying ki don't just decide morality based on the end or goal or any actions. Okay, he says that we should decide whether something is ethical or not based on some inner principles. What is the meaning of inner principle? He says that what counts is not actions which one sees, but those inner principles of action that one does not see. Means here he is talking about what is known as intent. कि हमारा good intent अच्छी or bad intent अच्छी. He says that this is more important. So he says that act that you use humanity always as an end and never merely as a means. That means it is a means based approach. It says that means is more important than end. Now let me tell you one very nice story. You tell me ki think about it, critical thinking करी मत कुआ कि what do you think? There is a very famous story in ethics that गोटे लोकटा कौन होता से डेजर्ट रे ताको जिबार थिला. now ए लोकर दुई जण एनिमी थिले. Suppose this is enemy 1, this is enemy 2, and ए लोकटा को बहुत लॉन्ग डिस्टेंस डेजर्ट दे कवर करियार अछि. So what he is doing कि से गोटा ता संगरे गोटे वाटर बॉटल नेकी जाउछि. Now this enemy 1 and enemy 2 do not know each other. सेमाने जान नांती कि सेमाने, but they are trying to sabotage this person's journey and they are trying to kill this person. So what enemy 1 did was that enemy 1 जाई कोन कला रात्रि रे जाई कि ए लोकर बॉटल टाको जाई कि पॉइजन मिसे देला. तो से भाबला कोन ए लोकटा ए बॉटल पानी रे पीले मरि जिवो पॉइजन मिसी. What the second person did was that a second person टा बॉटल टाको कणा कर देला. से भाबले कि ते पानी सब बाहर जिवो, तो एते सोसरे से मरि जिवो. So the next day when this person started walking in the desert, eventually ताको शोष कला से तो खोली बॉटल देखला किछि पानी नहीं, and he died. Now our ethical dilemma is who killed this person? Did enemy 1 kill this person or did enemy 2? Now you think and you tell me. कहा
The
को हमें
thirst.
blame करे? Thirst. अच्छा, if you are saying that means you are saying कि enemy 2 टा कणा कर देला बोले ता पाखरे पानी नथिला तो से मरि गला. मतलब कथा होची यदि enemy 2 टा कणा न करतांदा ताले से पॉइजन पी के मरि जेतांदा. So that means that enemy 2 deprived someone of poison, this person of poison. तो से poison टा को तो deprive कला. Can this be called an unethical work? तुमको माने तुम poison टा तार बाहर कर देला जे तो कोन असुविधा कोन आला.
So the enemy one did poison his water, but he did not die from poison. But there might be cases that he might not have drank the water, the poison water. He might have drank from some other sources. So he actually
ना other source तो नथिला ही ना.
actual
But हाँ को
the actual action that did not happen from poison.
so that happened from thirst.
Yes.
But कथा होची why
Sir,
it could have happened from poison ना. So he saved this person from poison.
So that is my point. That could have, but we did not know for sure.
Okay, yes, someone else was saying.
sir,
It's a
actually,
difficult
murder
question.
kale to di jana because both wanted to kill that person and they tried. They
Excellent. Who is this?
something.
Who is this? What's your
Sai
name?
Krishna.
Sorry, I can't see. Sorry?
Sai Krishna.
Sai Krishna. Excellent answer. Yeah, someone else was saying something.
सर मु सेटा कहूतली कि दी जण को इंटेंट ताको मारिवा ही थिला तो काहाकू भी माने स्पेसिफाइड करा जाय परियोनी आ जो मरिला जे लोक तार फेट रे मरियार ही थिला सो बोथ आर इक्वली कल्प्रिट.
Okay, so that is also one way of saying it. Now try to understand from this perspective. Now you will be able to better understand what Kant is trying to say. Kant is saying ki action, even see, action does not matter that much. What matters is intent. Okay. Now if you see, this person did not die from poison, so we cannot blame the person who has put the poison. On the other hand, even if this person died of thirst, the person who actually created the thirst actually only deprived the person of poison. So can you say that someone who is withdrawing poison or depriving another person of poison, that can also not be bad? My point is, these two persons did not kill him in isolation, rather they killed him together, in the sense that both are equally guilty. Now you see, here action does not matter that much as intent does, because both of them intended to kill the person. Okay, यार भी intent same थी. Like you see, both of them had the same intent, and that is to kill the person. Finally, from whose action this person died, that is irrelevant. What is relevant is that both of them had killing intention. So this is what Kant is saying ki what we should look for is the intent, not the action. Okay. So the person, आमे कहा को एथरे blame करा, आमे कहे कि together दुई जन जाको ही equally guilty. Or think of from this perspective, जदि दुई जन जाको enemy आसी न थांदे, scene को ही totally आसी न थांदे, ये person survive कर थांदा. दुई जन जाको आसिले बोली ये लोक मला ना, केही singly आसिले ही मर थांदा, और से but दुई जन जाको एका संगरे आसिले बोली भी से मला. So आमे कहा को एठु कहबा who is responsible? Both of them are equally responsible. Okay. जदि दुई जन जाको न आसी थांदे केही भी, ताहले ये लोकड़ा alive था. So Kant is saying कि both are equally guilty. Now think from another perspective. गोटे बहुत सिंपल जिनस देख, गोटे छोट पिला आसी तुमको तुम देहरे बाड़ी हो जदि तुम ता ऊपर चिड़िब ना. ओके, तुम मन से राग भी आसबनी, बिकॉज़ यू थिंक दैट दिस पर्सन डज नॉट हैव द इंटेंट. ऑन द अदर हैंड गोटे एडल्ट लोक यदि आसी जान तुम सामने देखुछ से लोकटा तुम आडू आसी तुम देहरे बाड़ी जीव, विल यू नॉट फील इरिटेटेड? What why will you feel irritated? Because you will understand that he could have, that person was in control of his action, but what was lacking was intent. So again, our decision is taken based on intent. In legal proceedings, this intent is something which is known as, what is the term? Can anyone say? Yes, which term do you use? Good intent or bad intent? Yeah, more exactly see term ta mane pone. Malafide to no, bona fide malafide. What is that? Men rea. Men rea. Okay. This is intent. Criminal, whether you have criminal intent or not. Just thorough check kar men rea whether this means that same intent or not. But in legal or law also, the same. My point is that intent is checked. Okay. What was your intent? For example, if someone is attempt to murder, now you see, even attempt to murder is a serious case. Attempt to murder mane kon? Mane actually murder ta hai nahi. And suppose that person is still alive, but still we are trying this person or not, who tried to kill the person. Why? Because again, attempt means there is an intent. So intentionally you try to do something. Otherwise, if it is a simple accident, attempt to murder usually charge karuna, because it is an accident, there is no intent. So that is what Kant is also saying, that we should try to understand what are the inner principles of action that which is not visible to us.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, moral absolutism माने कहबे कि ताहले दिजन जाक फर्स्ट एग्जांपल रे कल्प्रिट.
ना एथिरे मोरल एब्सोल्यूटिज्म और रिलेटिविज्म एथिरे आसीबा. आमे को जगह एब्सोल्यूटिज्म और रिलेटिविज्म पके आमे सेटा वी शुड आल्सो अंडरस्टैंड. मोरल एब्सोल्यूटिज्म और रिलेटिविज्म ए भलिया केस रे आसीबो usually where there are cultural differences. Okay, ए सब केस रे आमे we are comparing between moral absolutism and moral relativism in cases of, for example, free speech or something. Okay, माने सबु केस रे आमे moral absolutism और relativism लेंस रे जिंसटा को एनालाइज करि परिया नाही. Okay, so what Kant is saying ki, he is saying that you should use always humanity always as an end in itself and never as means. Means he is saying that humans are ends in themselves. Okay, so that means humans cannot be used or should not be used. So this is also very when I try to understand the concept. This means that suppose you are saying ki चलो मु मोर सांग को यूज करिकी किछ गोटा भल काम करदेबी, that means you are deceiving your friend to maybe achieve something which you think is ethical. But Kant will say that this kind of action cannot be justified. Why? Because you are using again a person. You cannot use a person. Use kebe bhi hoba nahi, because the person is an end in themselves. Okay. So Kant is saying that some actions are categorically wrong. Okay. What is the meaning? Categorically wrong mane? Categorically wrong
Sir,
mane it is yes.
sir, can you explain that second part of this quote?
Which part? Always as an end. Humans are an end. mane dekho end means
So
of
act
end con.
that you use that part.
Okay. So he is saying that don't use humans as means to achieve some other end, even if this end is something great. For example, national unity even. Okay. Now what utilitarians will say कि suppose you are saying किसी लोगों को हमें sacrifice करी किसी soldier को sacrifice करी कि हमें यदि national unity achieve करें तो से कि हाँ करो किसी problem नहीं. But what Kant will say कि no, you cannot do. For Kant this is crime. You cannot use anyone. Humans should not be used towards something else. Now if you are asking someone soldier whether they are ମାନେ ସେମାନେ ଯଦି ସେମାନେ sacrifice ଦେବାକୁ ଚାହୁଁଛନ୍ତି, if they are doing it out of their own, then that is justified. If they are doing it out of their own motivation, that is justified. But you are suppose deceiving this soldier and you are saying कि you go to the border and border ରେ କିଛି issue ନାହିଁ, but suppose se border ରେ କିଛି ତାଙ୍କର life ଚାଲିଗଲା. Now Kant will say that this was not justified. Okay. So you cannot use humans towards some other thing. Humans are an end in themselves. This means what? Humans mane end mane kon? Human manakara benefits or what we call as beneficence or well-being. This is of paramount importance for us. Okay. If you are using humans to achieve some other arbitrary goal, now what is the issue here? See, you also asked a good question. Try to understand. देखो जदि आमे जेबे तुमे एक्सेप्ट कर दो कि चलो ह्यूमंस आर एक्सपेंडेबल्स, मींस दे कैन बी एक्सपेंडेड. ओके, मींस आमे ताको एक्सपेंड करी कि आउ किछि गोटे बिगर गोल को अचीव कर परिया. Now this is actually justification which is given by many dictators. This is the justification given by many tyrants. Think of for example Hitler. So he was provoking people कि चलो आमे आंको मारी देले भी कोन हबो हमरो प्योर आर्यन रेस गोटे क्रिएट हो. So this was for him was justified, bigger goal. So for that if some people are dying he was fine with it. So Kant is, that is why Kant is said कि humans को हमें use करके कोड end को पहुंच करिया नहीं. Humans themselves are the should be our end goal. Aryan race should not be your end goal. What should be your end goal? Germans manकर well-being should be your end goal. If Hitler had thought about this, would he have done this? He would not have done this. Okay. Because या फल कौन किसी जर्मन को तो sacrifice करिया पड़ला ना. So this is the argument कि humans should not be used as means. Okay.
Sir, so by that logic, when Gandhi,
Yes,
agreed
yes, yes.
कि
Kantian.
no,
Gandhi
no,
was completely Kantian.
no,
Yes.
when Gandhi suggested that Indian soldiers should participate in world wars, so in that sense, he's against this
No, no.
Kantian
See,
philosophy, right?
some decisions they can be seen कि चलो, for example, when he is saying कि mass movement करिए. Okay. From this perspective, this might seem कि यदि mass movement करिए, Gandhi knew that some people are going to die. So if you are saying कि some people are dying, then that is fine. Then you will think that okay, so that means what? You are a utilitarian. But from this perspective, Gandhi said, for example, non-violence. This is an inviolable inviolable principle. This cannot be violated in any case. If you are saying कि हमको कोई वे रे freedom achieve करिया, this is our end goal. Okay. So you will say कि तब चलो यहाँ पे कोई भी means हमें approach कर पे हमें use कर पे violence भी use कर पे तो एथरू जो लोग को death भी है that is also justified. But Gandhi was saying कि no, हमें we will not use non-violence. Now specifically जो World War case, okay, this case in general is against Gandhian principle itself. So এটা ଗୋଟେ exception हिसाब से देखिया. But you see in general whatever decisions he has taken, even if you think of a mass movement କଥା ହି ଭାବ, ଏ mass movement ଟା non violent ହି ଥିଲା. ସେ ଚାହିଁଥିଲେ ଏଟାକୁ normal ତାଙ୍କର violent way ରେ ବି କରିପାରିଥାନ୍ତେ. Non violent way ରେ କରିବାର one of the reasons ଥିଲା କି he also understood कि this will actually minimize casualty. ହଁ କି ନାହିଁ? ଆମେ ଯଦି ମାନେ force by force ଆମେ ଯଦି ବ୍ରିଟିଶ ମାନଙ୍କୁ ମାନେ oppose କରିବାକୁ try କରିବୁ, what will happen? It is likely that more number of Indians will die. So he thought that this is a long term approach जोथिरे minimum number of people will die but we will achieve our goal. So minimum number of people not even die, माने से तो कहार death थोड़ी ना चाहते. So से peacefully से सेति में सब जिंस କରିବାକୁ चाहते. So overall Gandhi cannot be called as a utilitarian. He was a through and through Kantian, categorical imperative. So he put humans as end in themselves. But a gote single decision nu ame seta deduce kariparia nahi. Semti Gandhi ଦୁଇ ତିନିଟା ଜିନିଷ ତାଙ୍କ ଲାଇଫ ରେ ବଡ ଡିସିସନ ଭୁଲ ଡିସିସନ ନେଇଛନ୍ତି. ଫର ଏକ୍ସାମ୍ପଲ ଇଭେନ୍ ଇଫ୍ ୟୁ ସି ଖିଲାଫତ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ, khilafat ଜିନିଷଟାକୁ can you justify it morally? It cannot be justified. Why should you give center stage to one community only? And in fact this also helped in growth of communalism in India or not? So ଦୁଇ ତିନିଟା decision ସେ ଭୁଲ ନେଇଛନ୍ତି, but overall Gandhian ideology is actually categorical imperative only.
Okay, sir.
Now there is another aspect of Kant's ideology, and this is known as universalization test. What is the meaning of universalization test? Kant କହିଲେ କି ତାଙ୍କୁ ସେ ଗୋଟେ ଟୁଲ ଦେଲେ, ଓକେ, ଯେମିତି ଆମେ ଗାନ୍ଧୀଜ ତାଲିସ୍ମାନ ଅଛି, କାନ୍ତ ଗୋଟେ ଟୁଲ ଦେଲେ. ଟୁଲ କ'ଣ? ୟୁ ହାଭ୍ ଟୁ ଚେକ୍ whether an action is ethical or not. ଆମେ କେମିତି ଚେକ୍ କରିବା? କାନ୍ତ କହିଲେ ଯେ ଆମେ ଭାବିବା କି ଯଦି ସେଇ ଆକ୍ସନଟାକୁ ସମସ୍ତେ କରନ୍ତି, if that was done by universally, whether that will benefit us or not. If it will benefit us, then that action is singly also ethical. If it will not benefit us, then that is unethical. For example, think of something, think of stealing. Very simple thing. Now some people will justify that in some cases stealing is justified, blah blah, all this thing. Kant कहले से सब जिनिस छाड़, तुम भाबो हमें in general नबा कि the action of stealing in itself, okay, if everyone started to steal, will that be good for us or will that be bad? Of course that will be bad. That means stealing is bad. Think of killing. If everyone started to kill, will that be good for us? No, that will not be good for us. That means the act of killing in itself is bad. Okay. So Kant is very rigid about it. किया ना कहो कि नहीं हमें किसी केस रे killing is justified. Kant will say no. Killing, the action of killing itself cannot be justified. Okay. So you can also assume कि माने we can hypothesize कि, for example, capital punishment. What would be Kant's attitude towards it? He will obviously be against it. Okay. So he universalization test माने कौन? To check if an action is ethical or not. Kant said that consider the consequences if everyone did it. माने से action टाको यदि समस्त करिवे, what will be the consequence? If the consequence will be good, then that action is ethical. If the consequences will be bad, then that action is unethical. Now again, you see, I know that many of you will be able to think of some specific case study, some specific situation in which this condition will not apply. तो कहे कि ठीक है, even I accept that. Point is, each and every philosopher or moral philosopher or moral thinker, they will give us this lens through which we will see the world, and it is possible that in many cases their theory will fail. So এটা ভাবিবনি কি now you will start to argue for suppose कि এই situation এটা লাগিবনি, even I will admit, okay चलो লাগিবনি, but that is also their criticism na, but that was their view of looking at the world. And this thing we already discussed, intent and goodwill. Means what will matter to us is so what matters to us is intent and goodwill. So Kant's theory decision making रो से कहले कि दुई टाइप रो decision making अछि. One is hypothetical imperative, one is categorical imperative. See, no one will go to this depth, and it is also not required. Okay. In exam you will probably not be able to write all these things, so but still try to just understand on the surface level what this means. को बही रे भी usually सब जिनस लेखा नाही एते डेप्थ रे. The point is कांत कहले कि आमे दुई टाइप रो डिसीजन नै परिया. केमिति नै परिया? गोटे होची सही सिचुएशन ने, see this is in that situation where we actually have an option or choice. कौन ऑप्शन अछि हम पाखरे? Suppose whether you want to pass or not, exam रे पास होर अछि कि नै, सेठी तमे एमते डिसीजन नै परियो कि if I want to pass then I have to study. Means whether to study or not, you are taking this kind of decision. On the other hand, you can also decide not to study. So this is completely up to you. The point is, it is not of such a situation in which you don't have a choice. But Kant said that there are some situations where we don't have a choice, where we must act in a certain way. Act in a certain way माने either ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ action କରିବା or କରିବାନି. We have to act. କୋଉ type ର ଜିନିଷ? Where actually there is ethical dilemma. So in ethical dilemmas, he is saying that we don't have hypothetical imperatives. What we have are categorical imperatives. Means categorically you have to decide whether some actions are correct or not. For example, suppose there is a man who is drowning. Here Kant says that you don't have hypothetical imperative, you don't have a choice कि ମୁଁ ଯଦି ନଦୀକୁ ଜମ୍ପ ମାରିବି ତାହେଲେ ତାକୁ ସେ ଲୋକଟା ବଞ୍ଚିବ, ଯଦି ଜମ୍ପ ମାରିବିନି ସେ ବଞ୍ଚିବନି। Kant is saying that actually we don't have a choice in the sense that we must save the person. So in that your reasoning should be in this way that I must save a drowning man. So जो must असला ना, so that means it is a categorical imperative. Okay. Now I can try to understand, it's just a माने word play भला तुमको लागू थाई पारे। तो तुम्हें कहे कि सर एथिरे भी तो हमरो हम पाखरे चॉइस अछि, हम से लोक को बंचेबे को नहीं, माने सही वे रे से कहउनान, से कहउछन कि actually you don't have a choice in the sense that morally you don't have a choice. There is one clear path ahead of you and you have to take it. In that sense he is saying. Otherwise तुम जॉब करियोनी काम करो कौन नहीं। Okay. Any doubts in this? ठीक है, चलो next which is contractarianism. Let us try to understand what this means. So contractarianism, of course this comes from the word contract. By the way, just remind me to take a break at maybe 7:50. Okay, 7:50 55 around मते मन पकेवा नले मु कंटिन्यू करथि। So this comes from the word contract. So contract means there is party 1, party 2, or there may be multiple parties also, and there is some sort of contract or understanding that one person or one side will act in certain way and the other side will act in a certain way. This is the meaning of contract. So ethics, contractarianists will understand, try to explain ethics from this perspective, that ethics is not some kind of moral or sorry abstract idea. It's not an idea or ideology. Okay, they will say ki what this is it is a contract. Now try to understand it a contract kemti hela. So contractarianism initially was given by philosophers like Hobbes, Locke and Rousseau. So they said that ethics is what a social contract, means society bhitre amaro contract heichi. Okay, kemiti contract heichi? The contracting parties who are people in the society, they have come to a mutual agreement to act in certain ways for better coexistence. Okay, better coexistence kemiti hei paribo। ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ତମେ କହିବ କି sir ଆମେ ତ କେହି କିଛି sign କରିନାହୁ। So of course it is not a legal contract, it is only a social contract, means it is most of the time it is understood and most of the time it is continuing from a long time। तो गोटे history तार अछि, and it is also not legal but it has social sanction, means legal sanction নহले social sanction अछि, माने society ताको endorse करूची, society ताको support करूची। Okay, these are the characteristics. So contractarianism में कौन हुए, the individuals will trade some freedom and commit to some duties in return of gaining some benefits from the society। Means contract केमती हबो, suppose individual persons they are also parties to this contract, in general society is a contract, माने society आ गोटे party, तो एमाने समस्त एई contract द्वारा बांधी की अछंती and that contract is ethical behavior। Now why are we signing this contract? Point is कि आमे हमर किछि इंडिविजुअल फ्रीडम और राइट्स को सैक्रिफाइस कर दोछु सो दैट सोसाइटी थ्रू आमे किछि बेनिफिट पाइब। Think of it in this way, suppose you are going in metro or you are going in the bus, usually we have this convention ki elder women or suppose there is a pregnant lady or in general also ladies के आस्ते we are supposed to give them a seat। यार किछि रूल कोई लॉ अछि कि ये तो लॉ सेमते किछि नै, but why are we doing this? Again this is a social contract, we expect that by doing this, by giving up some or sacrificing some rights, some privileges, we will get back what from the society, some benefits from the society, some benefits for example एटा बहुत सिंपल से आंसर एमते ही पारे कि इफ तुमे आउ कहार मदर और सिस्टर और किछि नीस कहा को भी छाडु जो सीट, so that means your mother, your sister, your niece, they will also have similar treatment when they are going to somewhere else। And if you are an able bodied male person, it is assumed that you can stand for a longer period of time, so you are willing to make that sacrifice so that your mother, your sisters will not face that kind of difficulty in some other area। Okay, it can be as simple as that। Think of another example, think of the case कि suppose हमें कहीं लोगों सारे in general politely behave करू, it is a very simple thing। polite behave करियार माने कौन, आमे यदि तांग सारे polite behave करिया society में हमको politely treat करियो भलो way रे, आमे यदि rudely behave करिया आमे भी rudeness पाइबा in return। Okay, so this can be also be a contractarianism। So this means what, this is something known as quid pro quo, कि you are giving something, in return you are getting something else। Okay, and sometimes it is also called as a term भी use करा जाए enlightened self interest. Enlightened self interest माने ସମସ୍ତେ ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କର self interest କାମ କରୁଛନ୍ତି, although ଉପର level ରେ surface level ରେ ଏଟା ଜଣା ପଡୁନାହିଁ, but it is enlightened in the sense that it is a good thing, it is a moral thing. Okay. So you are leaving the seed, it is also in your own interest. Okay. Because in return you are also getting some other benefits from the society. You are politely behaving with others also for your own interest, because you don't want to confront the society, you don't want to have conflict with the society. So this is the basis of contractarianism. कहउछन्ति कि एई भला एंटायर एथिक्स को तमे देखियो मैक्सिमम जिंस एई भला सब सोसाइटी और इंडिविजुअल भितरे और कम्युनिटी भितरे कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हिच. And if you see, this Rawls theory of justice is also a subset of contractarianism. By the way, बहुत जगह एमती जो diagram करछि, I hope you are able to understand. This is the superset, this is the subset. Okay. Means this comes under this. Now let us see John Rawls. It even in many cases, if you don't write this also, contractarianism is not that important. But this is a modern theory which we appreciate is John Rawls theory. ଏବେ ଦେଖିବା ଆମେ John Rawls कौन कहले. Rawls कहले कि ethics टा कौन? Ethics comes from, or morality is nothing but justice. And justice कौन? Justice will happen when there is fairness in the society. Okay. So it is a modern theory of ethics which is based on the social contract school of thought. And John Rawls said that how should we see ethical behavior? We should see ethical behavior from the prism of, or from the angle of justice. Okay. Now Rawls said that justice is a procedure as well as an outcome that ensures a fair distribution of resources, opportunities by the contractors. Contractors kahinki? Because again, if you remember, this is a contractarianist approach. So by the contractors or contracting parties who do not know which share they will get in the end. Okay. यार माने देखो एटा ठीक कॉम्प्लिकेटेड मु थरे एक्सप्लेन करथि, आई विल एक्सप्लेन इट अगेन. रॉल्स सिंपली कोन कहउछन देखो. रॉल्स कहले कि हमर एंड गोल होची कोन कि हमें जस्टिस को केमती अचीव करिया. now जस्टिस केमती हमें अचीव करिया ना, हमें जस्टिस सेतेबेले अचीव करिया जेतेबेले देयर इज एन इक्वल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन. इक्वल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन माने कोन? इक्वल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन माने जो भी सोसाइटी रो कॉन्ट्रैक्टिंग पार्टीज अछंती तांको इक्वली सब जिंस दबा, यूजुअली अपॉर्चुनिटीज एंड रिसोर्सेस. ओके. नाउ इक्वालिटी हियर डज नॉट मीन दिस दैट सेम अमाउंट रो दबा, सेम अमाउंट नुहे एटा. In fact, Rawls himself is saying that some people should be given more than others to ensure equality. Okay. We will go to that point also. But for now, try to understand what Rawls is trying to say. Rawls is saying कि हमें equally सब resources and opportunity को distribute करिया among people. But how will we distribute? When this question comes, कि केमिति दबा, कहा को केते दबा, now the difficulty comes in this aspect. कि how will we ensure that there is equal distribution? Equal distribution will come when the person who is doing distribution does not know कि का को share टा कहा पाखु जाउछि. This is what Rawls is saying. Rawls पर भी बहुत criticism अछि. पता that means what? That means कि suppose you are, say ଗୋଟେ example देले, if you are cutting a cake, cake को काटुछ कि suppose पांचटा पिला अछन, तांको हमको दबार अछि cake टा. So you don't know which, and you are also one person, you also. तो छटा लोक को हमको केक बांटियार अछि ओवरऑल. तो तुम यदि काटी की दउछ, तुम जानुछ कि एई पार्ट टा मु नेबी, what will happen is that you may take a bigger part and lesser part टा बाकी लोक भितर बांटी दो. But if you don't know कि को पीस टा कहा पाखु जाउछि, तुम कोन करियो ताले? तुम ताको इक्वली डिवाइड करियो. So this is the approach. That means when you don't know which part is going to whom, you will operate from behind a veil of ignorance. These are the terms here he is using. Veil of ignorance. Ignorance ର पर्दा पछरे हमें छिड़ाई के डिसीजन नउछ. That means suppose think of this from an maybe administrative aspect. Think कि suppose you are making a budget. तुमको तुम budget बनौछ. Okay. Now budget बनौछ ताले suppose तुमको कुहा जीवन नाही कि माने को सेक्शन ऑफ सोसाइटी पे केते हमें दबु. So what you will do कि you will equally divide it. Now एथरे भी टिके issue अछि. This is not completely true. Here also there is caveat. Here later on Rawls will say that after you have distributed, you have decided you have cut this cake. Now if you see that there is more inequality somewhere, Now you can give more to that person, but initially it should be equally divided. Are you able to understand? Now initially जो equally divide करियार point कौन? Equally divide करियार point ये है कि we should not take more of the cake for ourselves. Okay. So we should operate from behind a veil of darkness so that I can see what is the outcome in all of this. Justice होची जोटी. आमे injustice केतल हो. आमे यदि maximum part टा आमको निज पे रखी दवा. जेमिति एटा भी होच ना legislators माने. What they did was कि whether you see in parliament or in state legislature, ସେମାନେ ତାଙ୍କ ନିଜ ପାଇଁ pension ଆଗ ବନେଇ ଦେଲେ. But they don't care about many other service ଯୋଉଥିରେ ଲୋକମାନେ କରିକି ସେମାନେ pension ପାଉନାହାନ୍ତି. Now this is also an opposite of this approach or not? Here Rawls would have said that they are not operating from behind the veil of ignorance. What they should have done ki initially they should have decided whether to give pension or not. If you are deciding to give pension, then equally distribute करो. तापर तमे देखियो कि माने equally divide करियो. तापर देखियो कि हमें काहाकू दबु केते amount. Suppose you are saying कि here suppose X servicemen, suppose they are having less amount of money, then you can give them more. If you are saying that some maybe legislators, they have a lot of money, MP MLA उनका पाखरे बहुत money अछि, then you can give them less amount of money, less amount of pension. Okay, so this is the theory, entire theory of Rawls, that in the end we have to ensure what? We have to ensure justice. Okay. Now how are we going to ensure this? Rawls gave three principles, three key principles. First he says that freedom. What is the meaning of freedom? Freedom कह रहे कि people are free to do whatever they want as long as it does not interfere with the freedom of others. Okay. So this thing, चलो एटा बहुत ही complicated जानिया दरकार नहीं. In general, what he is saying कि first he is saying a freedom,
Sir?
then there is equality. Yes.
Sorry. तो एई केस रे जो पेंशन वाला केस रे तो रॉल्स कौन कहउछन्ती माने इक्वली डिस्ट्रीब्यूट हेबा कथा कि जो माने पाखरे कम अछि तंको अधिक मिलिया कथा तो मन कोटा माने इक्वली डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन हबो
ना
कि
सर, see, initially equally divide हबो. When
Okay.
there is a point of माने जो stage आसे distribution ना, if you are seeing that you are seeing the status of these people, जहाँ जहाँ जो contracting parties अछन तांकर status हमें देखु. If suppose some person has more amount of money, then you can decide कि okay ए amount then तमे कमे परियो. जहाँ पाखरे less amount अछि ताको increase करि परियो. But initially when you are dividing, then you don't know कि who is getting how much, then you will divide it equally. Okay. So it is, see, the difference is between equality and equity. Equality and equity भी नुह. Suppose what is the difference? माने जनक पाखरे same amount आमे distribute करिया आउ जनकू equal way रे distribute करिया. Now is there a difference or not? Try to understand this.
So
Suppose
yes, sir, but in
one,
that sense, the veil of ignorance that is redundant. ना? तो आगुआ ही हमें जति देखे दे कि कहाँ
no,
पाखरे
you try to understand veil of ignorance or why that is needed. You try to understand that I'm distribute करूचे, we are considering others. Veil of ignorance is for ourselves. Man, if we are one of the parties, then veil of ignorance, we are using veil of ignorance to prevent what you can say is conflict of interest. This is one aspect. The second aspect is that initially, what a manageable number or manageable what is the right term? Initially, we should have this amount of break resources as well as opportunities. We should have a baseline. A baseline ta कोठु आसियो. Suppose you are saying amara budget suppose 100 crore अछि.
yes sir got it. Baseline.
Okay, poverty baseline टा कोठु आसियो. Baseline टा हमें equally divide कले तो आसियो. नॉल तुम कहे यार poverty आम देश रे बहुत आम राज्य रे बहुत से आमे कोन करे 90 crores poor को देदा. But even if you can individually justify it, point होछि कि poor people are not the only section who need this. There are also, for example, women need it. There are physically disabled who need it. Okay, so आमे प्रथमे poor, women, physically disabled एमान को नहीं कि गोटे baseline बाहर कले. Suppose 10 टा category बाहरला, baseline बाहरला कि 10 crore each. Now you see among this category who needs it more. Suppose poor need more, तो 10 crore जगह एटा 11 crore ही पारे, 12 crore ही पारे. But 90 crore तो केबे हबन ना. So that is the point. Point is कि हमको प्रथम baseline गोटे establish करियारे help करियो. Okay. And the second point is conflict of interest to avoid करियो. Conflict of interest means what? Means suppose जो person आई budget making करूची, he or she might be in one of these categories. Now, if he is told कि आमे एई कैटेगरी को एतिके दबा और it is up to you कि तुमे को कैटेगरी को केते दबो से कोन करियो तार निजे कैटेगरी जोटा सेटा दे दबो very simply भाबो suppose you are a person who is sitting in department of personnel and training, okay, and you are making a law for reservation. Suppose you are under one certain category, okay? Let us call this category X. If you know that if government is saying कि तुमको पूरा entire responsibility दिया हला कि बाबू तुमने जहाँ decide करो सेटा हम final decision हो तुम्हें जान तुम X category रो तुम्हें कौन करे जान जानी X category रो reservation quota को बढ़े दो अन्य YZ category रो कमी दो. So why? But if you operated from behind the veil of ignorance, you would first say कि हमें X Y Z समझते हैं equally हमें याकू 10% याकू 10% याकू 10% दो. Then you see what is the extent of deprivation in each. हेई पारे कि suppose ST category रे से माने बेसी deprivation अछि. So 10% नो देखि हमें 12% दो. OBC रे suppose number numerically they are higher. So 10% होई कि हमें 20% पड़ता. Suppose SC रे माने moderate level of deprivation अछि and number भी सते बेसी नहीं. तो 10% कमे कि 8% कर दी पारे. And I'm just giving you an example. So once you establish that baseline, then you can increase or decrease. The point is, देखो तुम जिनसे बुझार अछि कि roles कहू नांती कि behind the veil of ignorance माने blind हे जियो. In fact तुम यदि completely blind हे गला ताल तो end goal हमर कोन justice को हम पहुंच परिबो. Blindly हमें first जिनसटा को divide करिया distribute कला बेले हमें आखि खोला रखि distribute करिया so that our end is to achieve justice. Okay.
सर
But कथा होची जे तू yes
सर डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कला माने इक्विटी देखिକି डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करा हबो
yes yes
ଯାହା ପାଖରେ ସାର୍ ବେଶୀ ଅଛି ତାକୁ କମ ଦିଆ ହବ ସେଇ ଟାଇମ ରେ
कम दिया हबो of course. ସେଇଟା ହେଲେ ହିଁ ତ justice ହବ ନା. ଆହୁରି ଏଇ related ବହୁତ ସାରା quotation ଅଛି. For example, there is a very beautiful quotation कि if you are judging a fish on its capability to run, then what will happen कि ତମେ କଣ କରିବ ସବୁ animal ମାନଙ୍କୁ ଆଣିବ ତମେ କହିବ କି ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ equal competition କରିବା. competition କଣ running competition. ଯିଏ ପ୍ରଥମେ ଯାଇକି ପହଞ୍ଚେ ସିଏ ଜିତିବ. କଥା ହଉଛି ଯୋଉ land based animal ସେମାନେ ଜଲ୍ଦି ଦୌଡ଼ି ପାରିବେ ନା fish କୁ ବି ତମେ କହିବ equally ଦୌଡ଼ିବ ତ ସେଇଟା equality actually ହେଲାନି ନା. It is seeming to be equal but it is not equal. Okay. So what we have to ensure in the end is justice. Okay. That is the point. Now fairness, you see, fair. What is fair? Fair is something when people get what they deserve. तो ସେଇ डिसीजन टा ଆମେ କେମିତିଆ ନବା ସେଟାକୁ roles ତାକୁ ଏମିତିଆ step ରେ divide କରିଦେଇଛନ୍ତି. चलो ଏଟା बेसी complicated ହେଇଯିବ ଏତେ detail ରେ ଯାଉନି ଯେତିକି ଲେଖା ଅଛି ବस ସେତିକି ଯାଅ ଖାଲି. ଏଗୁଡ଼ା ଆମେ ସବୁ ଦେଖିଦେଲେ veil of ignorance, cutting the cake, okay, fairness as justice. हाँ that's it. एते बेसी ଆଉ बहुत बेसी डेप्थ रे गले ଆଉ बेसी कंफ्यूज हो. Okay. Now let's see the next approach, and this approach is known as virtue approach. What is the meaning of virtue?
qualities.
Some good qualities, and vice is bad quality. Tar opposite है virtue and vice. So these are the terms we are going to use in this approach. Now Aristotle, if you see, I am discuss करते what was the lineage? Spa, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. Aristotle is one of the later day Greek philosophers. Okay. So he had the accumulated knowledge of Socrates and Plato. Now Socrates and Plato को जहाँ भी theory थिला ताको देखी Aristotle गोटे जिनसे feel कले जहाँ भी moral और ethical theory थिला Aristotle somehow felt that Socrates and Plato are having a lot some theoretical or what can you say sort of bookish morality को समाने Plato no specifically Aristotle not even Plato it is some kind of bookish morality. Now so Aristotle says that आमे जो एते ethics रो कथा कहू जे what is the end point of ethics? End point of ethics होची हमर action itself. So action जदि देखो केमितिया सब opposite जिंस किए के कहू for example कांत आमे already discuss करथिले से कहले कि action no what is important is intent. Aristotle ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ perspective भी कहू आमे जो एते लोकन को ethical होबा बोली कहू जे what is the point कि समाने ठीक action नेबे ठीक action नेले समाने society रो ଗୋଟେ good member हेई परिबे. So for that what we have to ensure कि people should have good values and these good values are known as virtues. This is the माने बहुत crudely एटा होचे Aristotle का approach. Now in his book called as Nicomachean Ethics. Now Nicomachean by the way एटा ଗୋଟେ technical term no Nicomachus नाम रो आछि. It is माने एटा ଗୋଟେ controversial जिंस he was either Aristotle's son or his father. It is not established. But से ता नाम रे करथिले otherwise एटा technical term no. This is just the name of the book. So in the name of the book Aristotle has says that the objective or the aim of ethics is to achieve the good of humans. This is very important. Good of humans. And the highest good of humans is eudaimonia, true happiness. Okay. Why? Because he also, Socrates had said that an examined life is not worth living. And Aristotle is also saying that, okay, ଆମେ eudaimonia କୁ ଖୋଜିବା. But eudaimonia ଆସିବ କୋଉଠୁ? ସେ କହିଲେ କି eudaimonia ଆସିବ ଯେତେବେଳେ କି ଆମେ right action ନବା, ତାକୁ continuously practice କରିବା. Practice କଲେ ଏଟା habit ରେ turn ହେଇଯିବ. And stable habits over time will turn into character. And when a person has good character, then this will lead to eudaimonia or true happiness. से एमिति गोटे फ्लो चार्ट देले. अगेन ए फ्लो चार्ट भी को बही रे यूजुअली नाही. से तार से माने जहां डिस्क्रिप्शन में कहछन ताकू आई अरेंज्ड इट इन दिस डायग्राम, माने डायग्राम फॉर्म, so it is easier for you to understand. So what Aristotle is saying that righteous action को practice कले habit हबो, habit over time will turn into character and that will turn into eudaimonia. So his point is that our entire ethics ro objective is what? One is good of humans. This is the ultimate goal, and also the happiness of humans. And this can only be achieved through good habits. So his entire perspective is how to inculcate good habits, virtuous habit. Virtue गुड़ा को हम कहते हैं habit को turn करके. So now Plato had actually earlier. Now if you see in this sequence, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Now each person had been influenced by the previous person. Socrates initially से eudaimonia कथा कही दी, sorry eudaimonia no, examination of life कथा से कही दी थी. Okay. प्लाटो कौन कहले? प्लाटो एक्चुअली किसी वर्च्यू को सिंगल आउट कर देले. चारटा वर्च्यू कथा कहले कि एई चारटा वर्च्यू इज मोस्ट इंपोर्टेंट. नाउ अरिस्टोटल ताको आउट चेंज करी कहले कि ठीक अछि तमे ए जो कथा कहते सब ठीक अछि किंतु तमे टे बुकिश कथा कहउछ, मु बहुत ही प्रैक्टिकल कथा कहउछ. प्रैक्टिकल कथा कोन ना हमें जहां भी एसो जिंस करछि याको हमें प्रैक्टिस करिया, याको हैबिट करे दो. हैबिट कले ही से लोक माने भलो वे रे बिहेव करी, एंड दैट विल लीड टू eudaimonia. Okay, so are you able to understand how this thinking developed? So if you see from that perspective, Plato had already established what are the good virtues, and he had said that there are 4 cardinal virtues. Cardinal माने major or most important. So कहले ये चारिटा most important virtue होची human character development ପାଇଁ. से कौन कौन? गोटे होची prudence, गोटे होची fortitude, गोटे होची temperance, और last होची justice. So what is the meaning of each thing? Prudence माने होची wisdom, wisdom that guides our practical action. Fortitude, forte जो word रू आछि ना, forte means strength. So fortitude means inner strength. This is also a type of character. Similarly, temperance means regulation or moderation of emotions. For example, we call some people as hot tempered. Okay. Temperance. Some people are cool tempered. So आमे ता माने कोन, आमे इमोशन को केते लेवल ले आमे रेगुलेट करि परछ, कंट्रोल करि परछ. So this is also one of the virtues. And the last virtue is justice. Justice means fairness and equality. So Plato had already said that these are the most important virtues. Aristotle is saying कि एटा को हमें कोन माने Aristotle होचन जो ड्रिल इंस्पेक्टर भला. Aristotle कहले कि हमें सो बड़ बड़ मोरल कथा कोन तुमे पूरा प्रैक्टिस करे दे लोकन को भीतर एटा हला. Plato Aristotle खाली सॉरी Plato and Socrates खाली थ्योरी दोथिले कि हमें एमिति आवा सेमिति आवा. Aristotle कहले हमें लोकन को प्रैक्टिस करे कि तांकर कैरेक्टर बिल्डिंग करिया. Okay.
सर
Yes.
सर से जो फ्लो चार्ट कले तार स्टार्टिंग रे हमें एटा कर परबे कि ऐड कर परबे कि गुड वैल्यू माने वर्च्यू एटा तापर राइट से वर्च्यू जो
You can write. Yes, you can write here virtues. Correct. Yes, you can
Sir,
write. Righteous action will come from where? Virtues from virtues itself will come from. Yes. Yeah, someone else was asking.
sir eudaimonia साठी କହିଦିଅନ୍ତୁ ସେଟା ଜାଣି ହଉନି ଭଲସେ.
Eudaimonia पर explain करथली true happiness. Okay. Eudaimonia. Eudaimonia is simply Socrates said that eudaimonia रा माने कौन? देखो से कहले कि happiness can be of 2 different types depending on at which depth. At the shallow level or at the surface level आमे जो खुशी होचे सेटा ट्रू हैप्पीनेस नो. से कहले आमे जले डेप्थ रे जिबा दैट इज ट्रू हैप्पीनेस. तो कथा होची शालो आ सरफेस माने सरफेस आ डेप्थ रो माने कोन? Suppose तुम chocolate नहीं आनल खाइदेल, is that happiness? See, even if it is giving you joy, it is not actually happiness. Suppose तुम कोटे bribe रे पैसा नहीं आनल, okay, now you are enjoying some meal or you are माने कार गोटे किनिदेल, is that true happiness? You might feel, again you might feel joy, but according to these Greek philosophers, that is not true happiness. So what is the meaning of true happiness for them? For them, true happiness is something which comes from understanding life. When you truly understand life, when you understand you have a purpose in life, when you have a meaningful life, okay, then you can say to have eudaimonia. For example, very simply, जो businessmen माने billionaires माने अच्छन्ति, for them there might be joy, but can we call it eudaimonia? Rather, you think some person who may be some social activist. Now, the happiness of this person when he or she helps someone, so काहाକୁ help करिया द्वारा जो happiness ताकू मिलुची, that can be called as true happiness. So you are, when you are becoming IAS, now this is not true happiness. तुम्हें IAS है कि काहाକୁ help कलो, that is से through जो खुशी तुमको मिलना, that is true happiness. Okay. So in this way you can माने differentiate between what is true माने surface level happiness कोटा और depth रे happiness कोटा, बुझी होची.
Yes, sir.
Now there are a few other Western philosophical approaches. Western philosophical approach ଆମେ ସାରିବାକୁ ଯାଉଛେ. ଦୁଇଟା main approach ଅଛି. ଏଟା actually याकू तो ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ ସେମିତି prism or lens ବୋଲି କହିବାନି. These are some basic principles. Okay. What are the basic principles? One is known as golden rule, another is known as golden mean. Golden rule टाକୁ in fact this rule is very important. ଏଟାକୁ ବି ବେଳେବେଳେ କୁହନ୍ତି କି ଏଟା one of the founding pillars of ethics itself. But it is not a perspective. Perspective is should be something bigger. Okay. Perspective होची सेही lens जहाँ थ्रू रे तुमे पूरा entire morality को देखि परियो. But golden rule cannot be, माने is not that wide a thing. Okay. It's just a basic principle. The golden rule रा माने कौन? ना a golden rule कहूची कि do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Means what? अन्य को सेमितिया करो जहाँ तुमे expect करूचती और चाहूचती अन्य माने तुमको करंतु बोली. बहुत simple जिनिस. So that means that we want that others should treat us with trust or respect. Okay, so that means you should also treat others with trust and respect. What you want others to do to yourself, you should also do to them. Okay, that is a very simple principle. देखो ये principle ला बहुत सारा variation अच्छी in every culture, every religion, one or some other principle or some other tenet is related to this thing only. Similarly, there is a golden mean approach. गोल्डन मीन को भी कहते कि मिडिल पाथ वाली कहा जाए एटा को हम डिटेल देखिया बुद्धिस्ट आइडियोलॉजी अंडर. सो दैट मींस अवॉइडिंग एक्सट्रीम्स. ओके, गोल्डन मीन हियर मींस नो मीन हियर मींस दुईटा एक्सट्रीम एंड रे गोटे जिंस अछि एटा जोटा अछि दिस इज द मीन. जो मीन मीडियन मोड जेमति हम पढे ना सेही मीन होची एटा एवरेज. ओके, बुझी होची. सो द मिडिल पाथ. ओके, now we are going to move towards the other framework. One is the Western philosophy. Now we are moving towards Indian philosophy. Now, what are the Indian approaches to ethics? If you see, initially most of our ethical ideas will come from religion only. Later on, you will see that many single philosophers, many moral thinkers, okay, economists, they have given these kind of ideas. But initially, most of our ethical understanding came from religion. Why? Because if you see, religion had many functions. One of them, for example, regulating society. Society को regulate करिया ପାଇଁ. So out of this necessity, they started to lay down a code of conduct, and out of this code of conduct developed a sense of ethics. ये सब आमे आगरू सोसाइटी पार्ट रे भी डिस्कस कर चुके छी पॉइंट है ना. आमे जेले sources of ethics रे भी जिनस पे डिस्कस कर छु. Religion, whether it comes from holy text or not, divine revelation or not. Okay. So initially if you see the older religion रे प्राय सब मेजर रिलीजन में किसी ना किसी एथिकल जिनस को आइछि. तो तार किछि पॉइंट आमे उठे के एटे डिस्कस करू छु. यू कैन नॉट डिस्कस मोस्ट माने ऑल ऑफ द पॉइंट्स. ऑब्वियसली बहुत सारा जिनस अछि कि चेंज ऑफ म्यूचुअली कॉन्ट्राडिक्टरी भी अछि. So we are taking up a few aspects. For example, under Jainism, there are two concepts of Anekantavad and Syadavad. Anekantavad and Syadavad. Anekantavad, Anek means what? Multiple. So Anekantavad कौन कहूची? Many sidedness. मीन्स गोटे जिनसर और गोटे आइडिया रो बहुत सारा डिफरेंट साइड अछि और पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू अछि एंड अनेकांतवाद कहूँ कि आमे सब पर्सपेक्टिव रु केबे भी देखि परिबा नाही गोटे जिनस so it is possible that you are seeing something from one aspect only so there is an incompleteness of knowledge okay so अनेकांतवाद followers माने कहे कि आमे completely जानि परिबो नाही कि गोटे जिनस कोन for example if you ask them कि who are you they will say कि देखो मोर तो बहुत सारा एस्पेक्ट अछि मु आपन गोटे गोटे दुटा साइड ही कहि परि मु सब साइड तो मु निजे भी जानि ओके सो देयर आर मेनी पर्सपेक्टिव्स एंड एट्रिब्यूट्स तापर हम डिस्कस करिया कि ए सब कांसेप्ट्स रो व्हाट आर द implications of it okay right now we are trying to understand कि जिनसर माने कोन similarly if you see syadavad syado means relative or uncertainty relativism or uncertainty here you can talk about moral relativism see all of these both of these approaches are moral relativist or not moral relativism कि आमे we cannot know anything for absolute आमे absolute जिन टर्म में जानि परिबा ही नहीं so if it is relative if it is uncertain that means we are operating under probability you can only say कि it might be probably correct or probably wrong you cannot say कि I know it for certain कि this is correct or माने ethically this is correct or wrong okay so that means this is the summary of both approaches is that we should suspend our judgment what is the meaning of this thing suspend our judgment means don't jump to conclusions or don't माने आमे बहुत ही सर्टेन है कि कहि परिया नहीं कि ए जिंसटा ही एटा बोल okay so now tell me is this first of all can you write this approach in some kind of maybe ethical dilemma can you use this approach और तुम कहो कि यार हम तो अनेकांतवाद और स्यादवाद को हम किसी जणा नहीं ताले तो हम यूज ही कर परियन जदी किछ तुम जणा नहीं कोन यूज करियो do you think of this or can you think of any way to how we can use this concept in any kind of ethical dilemma
Sir, to avoid
think
knee-jerk reactions and to
yes
take time
excellent
and
very good so the most important aspect of this thing is suspending judgment माने कौन immediately don't jump to conclusion rather wait for as much information as much concept as much ideas you can gather then you can make an informed decision again even when you are making it you cannot say कि I know this for sure absolutism last पर्यंत आसीबो नाही but still this decision would be better than initial decision okay. For example think of this thing suppose one person came and behaved very rudely with you so Jainism Jain माने कौन कहे immediately किसी respond करिया दरकार नहीं what you should try to understand is कि why the person behaved in that way because you don't understand all the aspects of that person so हेई पारे सेही दिन से person नो किसी पर्सनल लाइफ रे किसी इशू हेतला हेई पारे से पर्सन अपसेट अछि मे बी के फैमिली मेंबर का देह खराब अछि किछि भी हेतै पारे so when you gain further angles or further perspectives into that person's life you might be able to understand why he behaved the way that he did so this might also be able to save some relationship you will be able to take a better decision this is the implication कि immediate decision making करियो नाही practical also let me tell you when you are in the service also actually आमे हमको गोटे डिसीजन माने गोटे कथा यूजुअली कहा जाय कि डैम्पन योर रिएक्शन बेले बेले कौन हबो कि किछि लोक आसीबे आसे कि इमिडिएटली एमिति पाटखंड करिए जे तुमको चिड लागियो आ तुम यदि रागी कि तांको ऊपर उल्टा पार्टी करियो साने कौन कहिबे कहे कि ऑफिसर ही खराब लोकन कथा किछि बुझु नांती अत्याचार करछन डैम्पन योर रिएक्शन माने इमिडिएटली रिएक्शन दवा दरकार जस्ट लिसन टू देम try to understand काहे कि जिंसडा हेची take your time when you think that you have most of the again you will never have all of the information सब information स्यादवादर माने ही से हमें हमें absolutely जानि परियन but relatively even if you are able to understand you will be able to take a better decision that is the meaning तो एटा बहुत सिंपली डीप जिंस न but this is a very practical approach the good thing about this is it's practical don't many people think this is useless this is not actually useless okay similarly you see buddhism middle path now याको तो मु कहबी कि माने this is an excellent thing to use in case studies ଯେତେବେଳେ ବି ଏଥିକାଲ ଡିଲେମାରେ କିଛି ଜିନିଷ କିଛି ପଏଣ୍ଟ ମନେ ପଡିବନି ଆଉ ପିଲାମାନେ ଏଇଟା ହିଁ କରନ୍ତି ୟୁଜୁଆଲି ଦେ ରାଇଟ୍ ମିଡିଲ ପାଥ ତ ପିଲା ପଚାରିବ କଣ ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ କରିବା ନା ଆମେ ଜଙ୍ଗଲ ବଞ୍ଚେଇବା ସେମାନେ କଣ କହିବେ ମିଡିଲ ପାଥ ସାର୍ ଜଙ୍ଗଲ ବି ବଞ୍ଚେଇବା ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ ବି କରିବା so knowingly or unknowingly you are taking this buddhist idea that you should avoid extremes you should take a middle path for example someone will say religion versus science ଆମେ କଣ କରିବା ଦେଶକୁ କୁଆଡେ ଆମେ ପ୍ରୋଗ୍ରେସ କରିବା तुम कह ना सर मु तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन पढ़ी साइंस ही बेस्ट तो साइंस को नबा रिलीजन को गोदी मार So in a democracy, you cannot say a thing like this. Okay, what you have to say ki, sir, religion को भी religion matter जीवा को science को भी develop करिया. This is what is the middle path. नागार्जुनकर माध्यमक मार्ग एटा कहे माध्यमक और माध्यमक मार्ग मिडिल पाथ. केस स्टडी रे प्रबल यूज हुए किछि यदि आउ किछि एस्पेक्ट मन न पड़ला कांत कथा मन न पड़ला रॉल्स कथा मन न पड़ला फाइनली यू शुड राइट दिस. नाउ हिंदुइज्म रो कोन को एस्पेक्ट हम नहीं परिया निष्काम कर्म. निष्काम कर्म यू मस्ट नो दिस. कर्मण्ये बाधिकारस्तु मा फलेषु कदाचन means what? Do your duty without expecting result. Result को without expecting outcome, we should do our own duty. Desireless duty. This is the core of karma yoga. कर्म योग एटा कोर और सेंट्रल टेनेट एटा कृष्ण को अर्जुन जो बुझेइतिले महाभारत वार रे. दिस इज द सेंट्रल टेनेट ऑफ हिंदू ऑर्थोडॉक्स रिलीजन एज वेल एज फिलोसफी. ए जिनसा जानि छ त हमर हिंदू फिलोसफीज रे दुईटा पार्ट रे डिवाइड हिच. गोटे हला कोन हला गोटे पार्ट हला ऑर्थोडॉक्स रिलीजन आउट हला अनऑर्थोडॉक्स. ओके ऑर्थोडॉक्स भितरे जो षड मार्ग अछि 6टा मार्ग जोडा अछि. ओके जो अनऑर्थोडॉक्स रे जोडा अछि लोकायती लोकायत जोडा अछि आ कोन अछि बुद्धिज्म
Buddhism.
जैनिज्म. Hinduism comes under this orthodox. So in the orthodox tradition, this is one of the central tenets of Hinduism, niskam karma. Now where can you point is where can you use this? Can we use this in any case study or ethical dilemma in your own life? हमें इटा केमती use करें?
Habit building.
sir.
Sorry,
Habit building.
habit building. What else?
Sir, respecting parents. Like
Respecting parents. एथरु
in
कोड़ा
personal
से
sphere,
respect.
मतलब
तो निष्काम
Because
कर्म
that maybe there is a situation where we have to opt between our like duty and maybe some rewards. Like ita kartele koto reward as we should perform our duty first. Like what
correct.
what we should do.
हमें किसी बेसिक पॉइंट एमती लिख पे परसिवरेंस बिल्ड करे हबो. प्रॉब्लम होजी कोन कि जेतले लोक माने किछि भी काम करंती दे एक्सपेक्ट सम इमीडिएट रिजल्ट ना इमीडिएट रिजल्ट मिल जाओ. तो एई जिंसडा तुम कोन सिखेबो ना फॉर डिलेड टाइम यू शुड बी एबल टू वर्क. दिस इज आल्सो समटाइम्स नोन एज डिलेड ग्रेटिफिकेशन. माने हमरो फ्रूट टा लास्ट रे और आउटकम टा हमको लेट रे मिलले भी माने लेट रे मिलले भी हम एंते काम करि पारथवा. एई जिंस हले एक्चुअली हैबिट बिल्ड अप हो. एई जिंस हले एक्चुअली हमें लॉन्ग टर्म पे काम करि परिया. ये सब जिंस हेल्प करियो. सेकंड कथा हला समथिंग रिलेटेड टू हैप्पीनेस. सी हैप्पीनेस रो रिलेटेड कोन किछि भी काम हमें एते करूछु हमें किछि गोटे एक्सपेक्टेशन यूजुअली रखि जे काम करियो. सपोज से जिनसा से वे रे टर्न आउट कला नहीं और से जिनसा हला ही नहीं यू विल इमीडिएटली बिकम अनहैप्पी. बट यार पॉइंट होजी कोन कि यू कैन वर्क फॉर अ लॉन्गर टाइम विदाउट एक्सपेक्टेशन एंड इवन देन यू कैन बी हैप्पी बिकॉज यू आर एंजॉयिंग द प्रोसेस इटसेल्फ. तुम आउटकम को देखनो प्रोसेस को देखुछ. यू थिंक ऑफ योर प्रिपरेशन. इफ यू आर प्रिपेयरिंग कि मु वर्ष प्रिपेयर वर्ष एट द एंड ऑफ द ईयर आई शुड हैव ए आईएएस रैंक गोटे मोर बाहरी जदि सपोज न हला एंड यूजुअली हुए नहीं. व्हाई? बिकॉज usually it is the task is much more difficult than what we expect it to be. So जेतले हला नहीं if तुम यदि बहुत एक्सपेक्टेशन रखी जाइतियो तुम प्रिपरेशन करियो नहीं. बट तुम यदि सेही माने निष्काम कर्म करतो तुम भाबियो कि पढिया कामटा ड्यूटी इज मोर माने आई एम द स्टूडेंट माय ड्यूटी इज टू स्टडी. So I will give my best outcome जहाँ हबो लास्ट देखिए. So then it is more likely that you will be happy as well as you will also be successful. Okay. Why? Because you will be able to work for a longer period of time. Now let us move on to the see यार भी और भी बहुत सारा पॉइंट बाहर करके. Okay, if you brainstorm about it you can think of n number of positive outcomes. In general गीता ऊपर तो कम रिसर्च हमरा ही नहीं बहुत रिसर्च ही. Okay, so you can even write one entire essay on this quotation also. But in ethics paper there is only scope to write 2-3 points. Now let us move on to the next modern theory. One modern theory आम स्टार्टिंग में कहूल ना इनिशियली जो रिलीजन रू ही मैक्सिमम थ्योरी आसी बट लेटर ऑन सम मोरल थिंकर्स हैव गिवन देयर ओन पर्सपेक्टिव्स. बाय द वे अमर्त्य सेन इज नॉट जस्ट एन इकोनॉमिस्ट. he is also a very good moral thinker. He is a philosopher in the correct sense. ତାଙ୍କର ଆର୍ଗୁମେଣ୍ଟେଟିଭ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ବହିଟା ପଢିବ, ବହୁତ ସୁନ୍ଦର ବହି, ବହୁତ ହି ବଢିଆ ବଢିଆ ଆର୍ଗୁମେଣ୍ଟ, ସେଥିରୁ ଆର୍ଗୁମେଣ୍ଟ ନୁହଁ ମାନେ you will try to understand many concepts from that book. So he has given us this theory of justice. Theory of justice କଣ? ସେ କହିଲେ କି whether some action is ethical or not, you can analyze it through two perspectives. One is niti, another is nyaya. niti niti ମାନେ କଣ? law, rule, okay, order, এই ସବୁ ଜିନିଷ ହଉଛି niti. So niti is something which is a medium or some mean. ନ୍ୟାୟ କଣ? ନ୍ୟାୟ ନାଁରୁ ବି ଜଣା ପଡୁଛି justice. Justice is the end. This is our end goal. So this is the medium, this is the end goal. Now the problem arises when we frame all the niti को ଆମେ frame କରିଦଉ ହେଲା. niti already କିଛି frame ଅଛି, laws and rules ଅଛି, social customs ଅଛି. So these are all means. But what is our end goal? Our end goal is to ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ justice ମିଳିବାର ଅଛି. ଆମର difficulty ସେତେବେଳେ ଆସେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ଭୁଲି ଯାଉ କି ନୀତିଟା କୋଉଥିପାଇଁ ହେଇଛି. ନୀତିଟା ହେଇଛି ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ ନ୍ୟାୟ ମିଳିବା ପାଇଁ. ଯଦି ଆମେ ବ୍ଲାଇଣ୍ଡଲି ନୀତିକୁ ହିଁ ଫଲୋ କରିବା, ବେଳେବେଳେ ନ୍ୟାୟ ମିଳିବ ନାହିଁ. ଏବେ ରିସେଣ୍ଟଲି ଦେଖିଥିବ ଗୋଟେ କେସ୍ ହେଇଥିଲା where ମୁଁ ଏକ୍ଜାକ୍ଟଲି କେସ୍ ଡିଟେଲରେ ଯାଇନି, ମୁଁ ଜଷ୍ଟ ହେଡଲାଇନଟା ଦେଖୁଥିଲି କି ଦୁଇଟା ପିଲା କୁଆଡେ କିଛି କାର କିଛି ହାଇଜାକ୍ କରିକି they were trying to save the life of some vice chancellor of their university or something. But the problem was that that car was belong to one judge. Now they did not steal it or anything, but when the case came to light, then the judge had a case filed against them. Now there this raises a question कि ସେମାନଙ୍କର କ'ଣ objective ଥିଲା? Their objective was something towards justice. ତାଙ୍କର intention ଭଲ ଥିଲା, but action wrong ଥିଲା. Okay, କାର ଟାକୁ hijack କରିବା और କାର ଟାକୁ ନେଇଯିବା ବିନା permission. Now this action is wrong. But if you are a stickler about niti, ତମେ କହିବ କି ନୀତି ଟାକୁ ତ mistake କରିଛନ୍ତି, so we will punish them. Then what will happen is that your end goal will not be, you will not be able to achieve your end goal. So ବେଳେବେଳେ ହେଇପାରେ ଆମେ ଯୋଉ means ଟା adopt କରୁଛେ ସେଇଟା correct ନ ହେଇଥାଇପାରେ, but for that we should not harm the end goal. Okay. So Amartya Sen here is saying that our end goal is more justified. If you try to understand, Amartya Sen here is actually taking the side of the end goal. He is not taking the side of means. He is saying ki arbitrarily ଆମେ means को follow କରିବାର point କିଛି ନାହିଁ. So he is saying law, rules, government authority, ये ସବୁର point କ'ଣ? point ହେଉଛି ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ last justice ମିଳିବାର ଅଛି. ଯଦି end ଟା meet ହଉନି ତାହେଲେ individual ର beneficence or well-being ଆମେ ensure କରିପାରୁନାହୁଁ. So Amartya Sen is taking the side of nyaya. And this kind of analysis you can do in ethical dilemma. For example, suppose କୁହା ହଉଛି କି one person has come to, ମାନେ you are an officer, maybe DM or something, okay, collector ତମେ ଅଛ, ଗୋଟେ ବୁଢୀ ଲୋକ ଆସିଲା, suppose she is not getting some kind of government welfare benefit ତାକୁ ମିଳୁନାହିଁ ଗୋଟେ ସ୍କିମ ର, ତା ରିଜନ ହେଲା କି ତା ପାଖରେ ଡକୁମେଣ୍ଟସ କିଛି ନାହିଁ. Now the question will arise, what you will do? Okay, now Amartya Sen will say that ଯଦି document ତାର ନାହିଁ, even without document you give her the benefit because you see that this person is deserving. ଆମେ document ନାହିଁ ବୋଲି ଦଉନାହୁଁ କାହିଁକି? because ଆମେ ନୀତିଟାକୁ ବହୁତ strongly ଧରିଛୁ କି document ନଥିଲେ ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ rule ବନେଇ ଦେଇଛୁ କି ବିନା document ଆମେ କାହାକୁ ଦବାନି. but the point ଆମେ ବୁଝିବା କଥା ଏଇ rule ଟା କାହା ପାଇଁ ହେଇଛି? ଏଇ rule ଟା କିଛି ଲୋକଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ହେଇଛି, ନ୍ୟାୟ ପାଇଁ ହେଇଛି. ଯଦି ଏଇ rule ଟାକୁ blindly follow କରିକି ଆମକୁ ନ୍ୟାୟ ମିଳିଲାନି ତାହେଲେ ତା ମାନେ କ'ଣ? ତାହେଲେ ଏଇ rule ଟା follow କରିବା କଥା ନୁହଁ. Are you able to understand or not? I'm giving you another example. चलो एग्जांपल नो यार, इन जनरल होची एया पॉइंट कि आमे जहां भी मीन्स अडॉप्ट करूचे रूल लॉ, यार सबुर पॉइंट होची कि लोकों को पाखो को हमको पीपल शुड गेट द बेनिफिट. जदि पीपल यार एंटर बेनिफिट न पाइले ताले आमे एटा को ब्लाइंडली फॉलो करिया कथा न. ओके, नीति वर्सेस न्याय. सो व्हाट शुड बी मोर इंपोर्टेंट और मोर एथिकल फॉर अस टू अचीव और टू एंश्योर न्याय, नॉट टू ब्लाइंडली फॉलो नीति. ओके, any doubt so far? किसी डाउट अच्छी? Okay, next let us then move on to other approaches to ethics, how to solve ethical dilemmas. Ethical dilemma रे ये सब practical approach गुड़ा you should write. Initially हमें जो philosophical foundation दे देला, एटा जेहेतु theory part रे section A रे थिला, तो section A रे से उटा बेसी काम रे आसियो. Case study रे एते बेसी explain करियार point नहीं. गोटे single line utilitarian approach रे तुम्हें लिखी दो या कांत रो deontological approach रे इटा. Okay, then you should rather move on to these kind of analysis, these kind of reasoning. Okay, these are all, by the way, so what are moral reasoning है ना, moral reasoning रो different tools. So one approach is known as balanced approach. You might have done this even in exam. Okay, UPSC main exam रे तुम एटा लिखी भी देखियो तुम, but maybe तुम जान नथिले यार ना हो balanced approach. Very simply pros and cons. कि गोटे action हमें यदि नबा तार pros कौन cons कौन. For example thing, गोटे बहुत ही common dilemma, ethical dilemma दिया जाए कि तुम गोटे ऑफिसर भाव में काम करुच, तुम ऊपर जो सुपीरियर्स अच्छा they are pressurizing you to take some action or not take some action. Suppose गोटे अगर riot ହେଇଛି तुम हेतु जीवा चाहूଛ, they are saying कि नहीं तुम जाओ नहीं for some of their own agenda, or suppose you don't want to take bribe but they are forcing you to take bribe. In such kind of case, okay, now you think of all the options available to you, all the alternatives, and you list out for each and every one कि जदि मु एई एक्शन टा नेबी से एक्शन पई प्रोस कोन हबो कॉन्स कोन हबो. फॉर एग्जांपल सपोज मु मोर सुपीरियर को कथा रे मानि कि सेठू जिबी नाही, प्रोस कोन हबो कैरियर प्रोग्रेशन है ना, एई भलिया सब ही लिखियो वो जे एटा सब केस स्टडी रे एमिति ही लिखियो. ओके, कॉन्स रे कोन लिखियो, कॉन्स लिखियो कि दिस इज अनएथिकल, फॉर एग्जांपल डिओंटोलॉजिकल एथिक्स हिसाब रे दैट इज अनएथिकल, कैटेगोरिकली सेटा रॉन्ग है ना, कैटेगोरिकली रॉन्ग, डिओंटोलॉजिकल एथिक्स हिसाब रे एटा होछ रॉन्ग, एटा तुम कहूछ. सेमिति सपोज यू टेक द सेकंड ऑप्शन. व्हाट इज द सेकंड ऑप्शन कि हमें सीनियर को कथा न मानि कि हमें फील्ड को गलु. सो व्हाट इज द प्रो, प्रोज रे हम कोन लिखिया, दिस दैट इज आवर ड्यूटी, वी आर डूइंग आवर ड्यूटी. ओके, एटा भी कैटेगोरिकली राइट एक्शन को हमें नोचे, राइट. बट व्हाट विल बी द कॉन, कॉन होची कि कैरियर हमपर हो और कैरियर प्रोग्रेशन हमपर हो ए सब जिंस. Actually exam रे you should also write like this. Sometimes the question itself will give you some option कि ए option को analyze करो यार pros and cons कौन. So this is a very useful approach or not, balanced approach. The second perspective or second approach is known as common good approach. Common good approach माने this is also a type of utilitarian approach. हमें इधर community रो importance दोचु rather than individual. हमें each and every action को ए way रे भी analysis कर परियु, whether it is benefiting some individual or whether it is benefiting some community, and जो action community को benefit करता हम ताकू ही adopt करियो rather than those actions which are benefiting individual. Very simple thing. Suppose तुमको कहीं पचार ले कि think of COVID-19. Okay, suppose there is a ethical dilemma कि one person is stuck outside of India or a few people. Okay, some people are stuck outside India, they want to come inside India. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ पूरा country रे lockdown कर दीजिए. Now if you think from common good approach whether we should allow them into the country or not, common good approach will say कि no, that should not be allowed. Why? Because हमें our priority is that हमें entire country रो लोकंकर population रो health को ध्यान रखियो. So यदि किछि लोक आसी suppose it spread कर देले, now एई किछि लोकंकर benefit ପାଇଁ individual benefit ପାଇଁ entire society should not suffer. So this can be an example of common good approach. Okay. So this is this not a subset of utilitarianism or not? हमें एठी maximum number of people कर welfare देखियो. कॉमन गुड अप्रोच भल वे रे देखो, गोटे भल वे रे गोटे अछि कॉमन्स डिलेमा बोली अछि. दिस कैन आल्सो बी सॉल्व्ड थ्रू कॉमन गुड अप्रोच. दिस इज अ टेक्निकल टर्म. कॉमन्स डिलेमा माने कोन देखो, कॉमन्स डिलेमा हो गोटे एमितिया एथिकल डिलेमा जेतेले किछि गोटे रिसोर्सेस अछि, रिसोर्स व्हिच इज लिमिटेड, and there are a number of people who have access to this resource. Now each and every person has an option कि ସେମାନେ यदि चाहिबे इधर एठू अल्प दिन भितर बहुत सारा रिसोर्स काढी नहीं पारिबे फॉर देयर ओन यूज, बट एटा कले कोन हबो, ओवर सम पीरियड ऑफ टाइम ए एंटायर रिसोर्स टा रिड्यूस हे जो एंड बाकी अन्य माने केयो पाइबे नाही. और दे हैव एन ऑप्शन कि समाने जति कि तांकर दरकार डेली सेति कि अल्प अल्प नै कि यूज करिवे, सो दैट समस्त पाखरे माने ऑप्शन रहइबे समस्त यूज कर पारे रिसोर्स टा. ना कॉमन्स डिलेमा हेतले आसे जेतले कि लोक माने डिसाइड करि पारंत नै, लोक माने कोन भाबंती कि आमे यदि एथरु बेसी रिसोर्स न नबो आउ कि बेसी रिसोर्स नै जियो, so it is better that we should take out more resource. So what happens is that in the end this resource gets exhausted, sorry जाए, and तापरे काहा को भी बेनिफिट मिले ना, जोटा कोंदी किलिंग द गोल्डन गूस. ओके, सो ए कॉमन्स डिलेमा को हम सॉल्व केमतिया करिया. यार गोटे एग्जांपल माने जेमति होई, सपोज गोटे पोखर रे किछि माछ अछि, हला किछि फिश अछि, यू आर द विलेजर्स, तमर एट सब घर अछि. ना समस्त जे भी चाहेबो एटा पोखर रे जाई माछ आनी परिबो. द पॉइंट इज सपोज जणे हे कि गोटे दिन सब माछ नहीं आनला तापर पोखर के माछ रहलेनी केही आ माछ खाय पाइबेनी बट तुम यदि डेली 2टा कि 3टा माछ ही केवल आनिबो ताले समस्त पई माछ बळिबो समस्त चाहे नहीं पारे बट तुम मन रे डाउट हो कि यार मु सिना 2-3टा माछ नहीं छी सपोज कोन हो मिश्र बाबू जदि 10टा माछ नहीं जी ताले मु लॉस रे पड़नी ना तेणु मु कोन करी मु 15टा माछ आज नहीं जाउछी मिश्र बाबू भाबे कि यार दास बाबू कहीं 10टा नेबे मिश्र बाबू भी 20टा माछ नहीं जे what will happen is that if everyone behaves in this way within 2-3 days entire pond will be empty and after that no one will get any benefit but if you try to see this from common good approach this can also be solved from common good approach now then now you will see कि आमे maximum number लोकंकर आमे benefit कोथरे हबो जदि आमे अल्प अल्प नै कि community benefit केतले हबो जेतले community को long term रे benefit टा continuously मिलियो तेणु सेटा केमति एन्श्योर हबो समस्त जदि ଗୋଟେ limited number of resource को partition करिकि देई पारे okay so this is the common good dilemma commons dilemma sorry and common good approach can solve it now you see this stakeholder approach I already discussed कर साइसे एटा बेसी किछि explain करिया नै very simply what you will do is कि in any ethical dilemma you will analyze the ethical dilemma from different stakeholders to this dilemma might be you yourself it is assumed that you are the decision maker there might be some specific community who is being maybe harmed or benefited by this action there might be the government for example part of it might be the police or administration okay and there might be society in general or people in general usually evalia stakeholder asio but again it depends on the case entirely हेई पारे केस बाय केस बेसिस रे वेरी करियो फॉर एग्जांपल कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस वाला जो डिलेमा आसबे ना सेथरे स्टेक होल्डर उडा डिफरेंट हो सेथरे सपोज यू आर द बोर्ड मेंबर कंपनी रो बोर्ड मेंबर तुम आछो सेथरे तुमर किछ डिसीजन नबार अछि एथरे स्टेक होल्डर की आसी कंपनी रो जो कस्टमर से माने गोटे स्टेक होल्डर तुम कंपनी रो शेयर होल्डर माने स्टेक होल्डर तुम कंपनी रो मैनेजमेंट ऑफ व्हिच यू आर आल्सो ए पार्ट दैट इज अ शेयर होल्डर सोसाइटी इन जनरल इज अ शेयर होल्डर sorry stakeholder so all of these can be should be the stakeholders of this particular case study are you able to understand I have just given an example it depends on the case jo case re kon hi pariya the point is by taking different stakeholders then you analyze ki for each stakeholder what should be the ethically correct decision okay so this is known as stakeholder approach एति पर्यंत किसी डाउट अछि कि किसी पचार बुझी हो ना किसी डाउट अछि बुझी हो बहुत ही बेसिक जिंस समिति बहुत डिफिकल्ट किछि न ओके then let us move on to the next approach legal approach now this is one of the practical aspects of solving an ethical dilemma practical बहुत ही practical approach देखो यूजुअली कौन हम केस स्टडी रे पिला माने बहुत सारा जिंस लिखती बेले बेले लीगल सिंपल लीगल अप्रोच को लीगल पार्ट को भूली जाती so for example suppose there is a case study of sexual harassment at a workplace okay now तुम एंटायर पूरा केस स्टडी टा को एक्सप्लेन कर देलो कि कांत कहउचंदी एमती हवा कथा हला रॉल्स इज सेइंग दिस ओके मोरल एब्सोल्यूटिज्म मोरल रिलेटिविज्म पर्सपेक्टिव रो एया होची सबु कर देलो लास्ट बट यू हैव नॉट मेंशन्ड एट ऑल अबाउट एनी आर्टिकल एनी लॉ you have not mentioned about CRPC IPC then what the examiner will think that ये खाली सेक्शन ए खाली पढ़ी कि आस okay means you are only reading the theory try to understand from this very practical perspective when actually you are posted in the in any district in any field okay you will take it for granted you will never ever analyze it from the perspective of roles or you will not analyze it practically केबे करिवो कि कांत कोन भाबुतिले practically what you will follow is first and foremost the law कोन कहूछ if law is very clear about something even if you know that morally something else should be done then you will also hesitate the point is law is supreme supreme law of the land our ordinary law is the supreme law of the land which is based on constitutional law constitutional setup constitution itself जो framework अछि ता basis रे then parliament further frame करछि different laws If you are not writing these basic laws, then your answer will be incomplete. So कौन लिखियार अछि हमकु हमकु constitutional article लिखियार अछि किछि भी important article if you can mention you should mention. Suppose गोटे hunger related किछि गोटे issue आछि गोटे ethical dilemma, then you should mention कि article 21 under रे right to food is also a part of our right to life. So if you are mentioning such things, then examiner will understand कि चलो mental clarity पूरा अछि. Without analyzing from legal perspective, at least गोटे point तो law रू लिखियो case study रे सब. Similarly, you can also write about constitutional values. Even if there is no specific article, you can still write about constitutional values. Constitutional values, for example, preamble रो values जहाँ जहाँ लिखा है, justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, सब जिनसे लिख परियो. Constitutional values which are maybe directly article रे mention नहीं, but जो उड़ा judicial interpretation ही चीज़, सेगुड़ा भी लिख परियो. Right to die, right to privacy, right to clean environment. Okay. For example, this case, MC Mehta case रो इटा आसला. Right to privacy, पुट्टा स्वामी case और आधार case रो आसला. राइट टू डाई अरुणा शॉनबाग केस रो आसला है ना. ऑल ऑफ इवन यू कैन इवन मेंशन द केस रो नाम भी मेंशन कर परियो, बट पॉलिटी वाले आंसर लिखियोनी कि बहुत डिटेल ले लिखिया दरकार नहीं. वन पॉइंट शुड बी फ्रॉम दिस पर्सपेक्टिव. सिमिलरली लॉज, डाउरी प्रोहिबिशन एक्ट, प्रिवेंशन ऑफ करप्शन एक्ट, प्रिवेंशन ऑफ सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट एक्ट, यू शुड डेफिनेटली मेंशन. डाउरी रिलेटेड गोटे एथिकल केस स्टडी आसी, तुम कोड भी डाउरी प्रोहिबिशन एक्ट लिखिन कि लॉ रे सीआरपीसी आईपीसी रे कोन प्रोविजन अछि लिखिन, तो तुम आंसर टा इनकम्प्लीट रहला. तुम केवल गोटे थियोरेटिकल पर्सपेक्टिव रे ताको एनालिसिस करले इट विल बी इनकम्प्लीट. ए ए लॉ टा तो बहुत जगह रे यूज हो, माने एटलीस्ट half of your case studies will be something or other related to corruption itself. So prevention of corruption act you can write. Okay. Similarly, rules and regulations or guidelines, central civil services conduct rules, all India services rules, Visakha guideline of Supreme Court, which itself turned into POS Act, Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act. So these are our guidelines. These can also act as our ethical guideline or not. You can write about, in police case, you can write about Prakash Singh directives. So GS knowledge भी लिख पारे कुछ असुविधा नहीं, but GS पढ़े आंसर करियो नहीं. Similarly, you can write about conventions, legislative conventions, parliament, different parliamentary conventions, social norms, cultural etiquettes. ये सब जिन को भी लिख पारियो कोटा पॉइंट करी. Okay. For example, I have written one example: obeying religious rules in temples or places of worship. You can give example of Sabarimala case, where despite the Supreme Court judgment, still it was not accepted by the people in general because a minority section was demanding such kind of rights, whereas the majority tried to have the status quo. Same आग भलिया रो बोली ସେମାନେ ଚାହୁଁଥିଲେ. So finally even Supreme Court ର directive ବି କିଛି କାମ କଲା ନାହିଁ. Why? Because of conventions, social norms, cultural norms. Okay. So these are also very important aspects which regulate our behavior. Any doubt so far? Any doubt? Stakeholder approach. Am I audible or कटियल है किसी feedback नहीं? Hello?
Audible,
Hello?
sir.
Audible,
Okay.
sir.
ठीक ଅଛି. ଦେଖ ତମେ ଯଦି ସବୁ ବୁଝି ଯାଉଛ ତାହେଲେ ମାନେ କିଛି doubt ନାହିଁ ଯଦି it can be two options. Either you are genius, you are able to understand everything, or I am a genius, I am able to explain to you everything. So both cannot be the case. You tell me what is the case.
So the
ମତେ ଲାଗୁଛି
second one.
maybe କିଛି
Sir,
ମତେ
the
ଲାଗୁଛି
second
maybe
one.
ମତେ ଲାଗୁଛି maybe I'm not able to explain some parts. ठीक है, ଯାହା ବି doubt हो पचारियो. Any aspect, anything you are unable to understand, please ask. जो हमको 100% mental clarity संगे exam ଯିବ. Exam ଯିବା ପୂର୍ବରୁ ଯାହା doubt ଅଛି ଗୋଟେ ଜିନିଷ ମାନେ I always tell people this thing. I don't know who said this, but this is one of my very favorite quotations. Fail early, fail often, fail fair. You should start to fail very early, you should fail often, and you should fail fairly, in fair sense. The point is jette failure, jette type ro failure hobar अछि na, ei class रे, ei answer writing रे, test series रे जहाँ भी तुम join करछो सेइथरे fail हेइ जाओ. जते different way रे fail हेइ परियो, but don't fail in the actual exam. Actual exam रे हमको succeed होबार अछि. बट तुम यदि एक्चुअली एनफ प्रैक्टिस करके न जाइयो सेठी गोटे नुआ वे रे फेल हो दैट इज द फियर सो द पॉइंट इज एग्जॉस्ट ऑल काइंड ऑफ फेलियर हियर सब टाइप रो फेलियर एटी एग्जॉस्ट कर दियो सो दैट एक्चुअली एक्चुअल एग्जाम हॉल रे यू विल बी सक्सेसफुल केते डिफरेंट वे रे कोन हेई पारे डिफरेंट डिफरेंट सपोज टाइम आउट हे गला टाइम तुम पाखु एनफ हेलानी so you write so that means in at your home you should write okay mock test देकी एमितिया लेखो कि माने 3 घंटा जगह रे 2 आवर 55 मिनिट्स में एमती कॉपी सबमिट कर परछ दिस इज आल्सो हैक पॉइंट इज कि तुम यदि घरे केबे प्रैक्टिस करन थियो फर्स्ट टाइम एग्जाम रे जेकी फर्स्ट टेस्ट दोछ देन तुमे मे बी टाइम कथाटा कंसीडर ही करन थियो तुमे खाली क्वालिटी ऑफ आंसर कथाटा भावतो देन योर फेलियर विल कम फ्रॉम दिस एस्पेक्ट बट बहुत सारा टेस्ट देले कोन हो मे बी गोटे टेस्ट रे फेल हमें एई सेंस रे यूज करछे कि मे बी यू आर गेटिंग लेस मार्क्स so fail maybe गोटे टाइम एथि हो बिकॉज़ टाइम तुमरा एनफ हेलानी आ गोटे टाइम तुम लेस मार्क पाइलो बिकॉज़ क्वालिटी एते भलो नथला आ गोटे टाइम एमिति ही पारे बहुत ही माइनर मिस्टेक पई सपोज तुमर पेन ही तुम पाखरे सरी गला मैं एक्स्ट्रा पेन नहीं नथिलो मो मो कहा कथा जेते टाइप रो फेलियर अछि सब क्लास रे हेइ जा so that when you go to the exam hall you should not fail okay? So jaha that means one of the corollaries is whatever doubt you are having you ask me in actual exam hall you should not have doubt कि रोल्स कौन कही कांत कौन कही तो सेठी यदि डाउट हो ताले मु तुमको बाडेई एबे पर्यंत तुम मते बाडे पारे बट सेठी यदि डाउट हला तापर आसी सर मोर कॉन्सेप्चुअल क्लैरिटी नथिला मु बुझी पारली नथली कि क्लास रे कि कांत कौन कही और रोल्स कौन कही देन आई विल बी अपसेट ओके बिकॉज़ आई वाज नॉट एबल टू एक्सप्लेन सो व्हाटएवर डाउट you have you should ask me okay next move on to some parts by the way I don't know if you are able to understand or not आज क्लास रे बाय द वे जिते सारा डिफरेंट एस्पेक्ट रो हम जिंस को एनालिसिस करछ ना एटा केवल सेक्शन ए रे नो सेक्शन बी रे भी केस स्टडी रे भी तुम लिख परियो ओके इनफैक्ट द एंटायर फिलोसॉफिकल फाउंडेशन ऑफ एथिक्स सम पीपल आई नो जो माने केवल इंट्रोडक्शन टू एथिक्स और फिलोसॉफिकल फाउंडेशन एथिक्स पढ़ी के ही एग्जाम को जानते आ किछि जिंस पढ़ंती एंड दे आर स्टिल एबल टू स्कोर वेरी वेल बिकॉज़ दे अंडरस्टैंड माने पूरा एथिक्स रो कोर जिंस को कोन बुझी जान आ बाकी जिंस तांकर क्रिएटिविटी रो निजर जीएस नॉलेज रो लिखि दिया okay. So these initial classes are very very important later on what will happen is that you'll see that one chapter will be finished in one class no issues attitude aptitude रे बहुत बेसिक कोन भी अछि attitude कोन attitude change केमितिया करा जे बुझी गले से जिंसटा को सबुट एप्लीकेशन कर दी पारि no issues but ethics रो दी फ्रेमवर्क का बेसिक फ्रेमवर्क बुझी न पारियो लास्ट पर्यंत बहुत डिफिकल्ट लागियो कि यार एथिक्स टा गोटे नुआ जिंस आसीला कोन बुझी पारनी कोन आंसर लिखि बुझी पार ओके so these classes are very important let us move on to the next point governance related
सर
approaches
सर
yes
आपन को गोटे ब्रेक देबो
अच्छा it's like Himanshu had enough of me like ना बहुत ही गला गोटे break
सर
दर
टिके
ठीक है let us take 10 minutes break we will convene again at 7:55 okay so this this meeting will be continued ठीक है take a break
सर अब सेक्शन ए रा भी मो प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चन जस्ट एमती ओवरलुक करथले तो एमती किछि एमती डायरेक्ट केमती किछि क्वेश्चन आतला माने मते तो बहुत कॉम्प्लिकेटेड लागुतला क्वेश्चन रा
yes even section A has also evolved starting रे तुम देखियो for example attitude ऊपर बहुत simple question आस्तियो कि what do you mean by attitude or what do you mean by political attitude how can we change it एबे कोन आसे एबे गोटे कोटेशन आसियो गोटे context रखियो कि in this context how can we change people's attitude blah blah complicated actually no doubt but again also consider this aspect because since OPSC has taken up this for the first time in each I don't expect exactly same level or same difficulty रे पचारे but still we will be prepared for the worst तो आज भी मु तुम देबी हला क्वेश्चन देबी you try to write we will see most of you are by the way I know that many of you might not be satisfied with what you are writing point is with what you are writing with the input that we are giving the practice that you will continue till the end of this exam uh, that will carry you through okay don't worry so 100% perfect तो एमती चलो किछि हबो भी नहीं केबे but gradual जो improvement टा हबो ना so that will fetch you more marks even if you yourself are not satisfied because point होची कि even examiner does not know exactly तारा आंसर कोन कोन examiner को जणा अछि ताको भी जणा नाही but if you are giving good arguments भलो concepts लेखुचो ethics रो then it is fine, and you will get good marks. Okay. Chalo, anyway, we should continue from this governance related approaches. ये सब जिनस देख आम बहुत सारा जिनस जो देखु बहुत सारा डिफरेंट एथिकल पर्सपेक्टिव रु गोटे एथिकल डिलेमा को आम एनालिसिस करूछु किसी जिनस कौन हम स्पेसिफिकली इट विल बी आस्क्ड फॉर यू टू एनालाइज इट फ्रॉम गवर्नेंस पर्सपेक्टिव और एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव पर्सपेक्टिव. सो देयर दिस काइंड ऑफ अप्रोचेस विल कम इन हैंडी. चलो किसी डिलेमा तो कंप्लीटली एमितिया थिबो कि सेठी गवर्नेंस आसीबो ही नहीं, बट जोठी गवर्नेंस आसी परियो यू शुड डेफिनेटली राइट. ओके, गोटे दुटा पॉइंट गवर्नेंस साइड रु भी लिखि दो. तो कौन कौन अप्रोच गुड लिख पारियो. फर्स्ट इज यूनाइटेड नेशन रो मॉडल दा अछि, यूनाइटेड नेशन रो मॉडल ऑफ गुड गवर्नेंस व्हिच वाज आल्सो कोटेड बाय द सेकंड एआरसी रिपोर्ट ऑन एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव रिफॉर्म्स. एटा गोटे सेकंड एआरसी रो 12th रिपोर्ट रु आछि. माने से माने 12टा रिपोर्ट देथिले. दिस इज नोन एज द हार्ट ऑफ गवर्नेंस रिपोर्ट. हार्ट ऑफ गवर्नेंस रिपोर्ट, पिंक कलर रो बहिटा. इफ यू हैव read this or not, I don't know. But when I was in academy, I was reading that book and I was making note of that book. It's a really excellent book. Okay. Just out of the curiosity कि कौन कौन जिनिस माने voluminous amount of very good recommendations are there. 11टा बही रो तांकर previous report रो summary almost कहे बोले 12th report. तो second year से कहले लोक माने जो बहुत कंफ्यूज होते ना सेकंड ईयर से कौन पढ़िबो सब 11टा रिपोर्ट पढ़िया दरकार नहीं. 12th रिपोर्ट टाकू पढ़ियो and if possible try to read it माने original source टा पढ़ियो. गोटे पिंक कलर रो बहिटा भलो बहिटा. Please don't read the summary. से इनसाइट आए से विजन आए तार जो समरी करी देथि से समरी रे तार चार्म किछ रहिबन. जदि ए रिपोर्ट टा कंप्लीट भी न पढ़ी पारलो जोट भी इच्छा होजे मझिरे मझिरे खोली पढ़िबो पार्ट पार्ट किछ बॉक्स उडा भी पढ़िबो. even that you will be able to remember rather than any coaching center material जो एमती linearly से पॉइंट पॉइंट करी लिखते से सब किछि मन रहयो. Okay, so if possible my recommendation, please read the 12th report which is also known as heart of governance. So in that report they have also adopted this model, United Nations model of good governance. ସେଥିରେ ଲେଖା ହେଇଛି କି 8ଟା characteristics ଅଛି good governance ର, and ତାର mnemonic, this is my mnemonic, carpenter. Okay, if you see this diagram, you will see this diagram in many areas. Good governance ର ଏଗୁଡ଼ା ହଉଛି characteristics: consensus oriented, accountable, transparent, responsive, equitable and inclusive, effective and efficient, follows the rule of law, and participatory. So you can convert this into carpenter. Okay, CARPETER, enter 9. So for example, suppose किछि गोटे ethical dilemma अछि, different law रू तुम analysis कलो, different philosophical aspect रू तक analysis कलो. One point you can write that as an administrator, or suppose मु DM or DC हिते हिसाब रे हम पचारै कि मु कोन करी बोली मु क्वेश्चन पचारै छि. तुम कहयो कि suppose you are taking some action which is showing that it is a responsive action, माने you are responding to people's grievance, then you will say that this is also part of the 8 characteristics of good governance as given by UN model or as given by United Nations. Okay, माने are you able to understand कि हमें कोट केमतिया करिया, को गोटे सिंगल पॉइंट हमें एमितिया बाहर करिया 1 2 3 4 एमती भितरे गोटे पॉइंट एमितिया बाहर करिया कि एटा होची एई सेई वर्च्यू जोटा होची यूएन रो 8टा गुड गवर्नेंस रिलेटेड कांसेप्ट भितरु गोटे और गोटे कि दुईटा वर्च्यू एमती लिख पारियो. ओके, बट सेगुडा एगुडा या भितरु गोटे हितिया दरकार, कंसेंसस ओरिएंटेड हितिया दरकार, अकाउंटेबिलिटी, रेस्पॉन्सिव हितिया दरकार, पार्टिसिपेटरी, इफेक्टिव, एफिशिएंट, जा भी. Similarly, you can also write one of the points, you can write that this is part of the 8 foundational values for civil servants as given by second ARC. Foundational values for civil servant, if you see, this phrase itself is mentioned in the syllabus. This is actually part of your GS4 syllabus. Okay, in fact next 2 classes will be taken by Shubham Dixit sir, so he is going to ethics class. So in the ethics class, because those are related to governance, ethics in governance and probity in governance, as well as foundational values for civil servants, similar topics. So in this topics you will see this kind of diagrams you should be able to draw very rapidly, that ये जो 8-sided diagram इनको draw कर दो, ये पूरा complete माने full sentence लिख दो वाला, honesty, objectivity. Just to माने simplify this, I have done this. Okay, यार mnemonic कौन, mnemonic होची HOPRERI, HOPERIRI, honesty, objectivity, probity, empathy, responsibility, impartiality, rule of law, integrity. Okay. For example, suppose गोटे एथिकल डिलेमा गोटे केस स्टडी तुम पाखु आसी मे बी यू आर एट द जॉइंट सेक्रेटरी लेवल and you have been assigned a task how to distribute some kind of money or how to allocate a project to maybe different contractors. Okay. So different contractor मैंने bid करछन तुम काहा को दो तो हेतरे गोटे तुम पॉइंट लिख परियो कि something about impartiality. Here you will mention that the joint secretary should act in this way so that he maintains impartiality, which is one of the foundational values of civil servants as given by second ARC. ARC stands for Administrative Reforms Commission. Full form Administrative Reforms Commission. Yes. Are you able to understand? केमिति कोट करिवो आउ जदि क्वेश्चन जदि डायरेक्टली सेक्शन ए रे गोटे क्वेश्चन डायरेक्टली जदि आसीगला फाउंडेशनल व्हाट आर द फाउंडेशनल वैल्यूज ऑफ सिविल सर्वेंट्स और क्वेश्चन आसीगला कि हाउ शुड सिविल सर्वेंट्स इंश्योर एथिकल बिहेवियर इन पब्लिक डिसीजन मेकिंग सो एई वाला जदि टर्न वाला क्वेश्चन डायरेक्ट आसीगला ताल तो तुम पूरा डायरेक्ट डायग्राम टा भी कर परियो एंड यू शुड डू इट दिस विल एक्चुअली एक्ट एज वैल्यू एडिशन हम कथा ही ना वैल्यू एडिशन में डायग्राम फिगर ए सब जिंस हम एक्स्ट्रा जिंस किछि ऐड करू okay now let us move on to the third point and this is very well quoted मैंने बहुत सारा पिला ए पॉइंट भी लिखे नोलन कमिटी recommendations नोलन कमिटी एक्चुअली यूनाइटेड नेशंस सॉरी यूनाइटेड किंगडम ब्रिटेन ने एटा एस्टैब्लिश कराइतला यार टेक्निकल एक्चुअल नाम होजी कमिटी ऑन स्टैंडर्ड्स इन पब्लिक लाइफ this was headed by this person known as Nolan not Christopher Nolan some other Nolan he gave 7 principles of public life. Public life means here it is not just about civil servants. It is about, who is it about? It is about public servants. If you try to understand, public servants is actually a bigger or it is a superset. Public servants. Public servant का गोटे category होची civil servant. For example, even people's representatives, MPs, MLAs, they are also public servants. But civil servant के bureaucrat, IAS, IPS, है ना? OS, OPS एवं समस्त होचंती इवन अकाउंट सर्विस जहाँ किसी रिक्रूट होचंती okay they are all part of the civil service but public servant are it is a broader category so Nolan committee's recommendation was for public servants so even remember even for politicians जब politician मानों को भी किसी criticize करो जो case studies रे भी there also you can write it some people actually think कि जब bureaucracy आसे सताले हमें Nolan committee recommend करें not necessarily any public servant you can in that context you can write about their recommendations सप्तटा से वैल्यू कहिथिले 7 प्रिंसिपल्स so principles तो rather value कहया correct the committee was based on principle तो छड़ा these are values ना सप्तटा value किसे paramount वाली कहिथिले selflessness honesty accountability integrity leadership objectivity and openness so याको निमोनिक रिटर्न कर दीजिए कि shallow SHALLO some people also have different mnemonic it's up to you तुम यदि चाहेबो तुम निजर mnemonic बने करियो माने एटा को यदि वैल्यू एडिशन गिमिक हम गोटे डिस्कस करछ ना गिमिक करिया को चाहेबो तो एटा को जबरदस्ती किछि गोटे एमती गोटे सात टिके एंड डायग्राम कर दो है ना आई डोंट नो हाउ यू विल ड्रॉ दिस सातटा साइडेड वाला डायग्राम करके एमती लिख पारि now let us come to this part one is also known as precautionary principle another principle is known as harm principle okay. These are some of the miscellaneous perspectives of ethics that we are looking at precautionary principle and harm principle कौन है यार माने फर्स्ट होची precautionary principle it straightly I have lifted from Wikipedia okay these are not my notes तो एते सेते भी बहुत important जिंस एटा नो just
Sir,
you
it a
can maybe
governance
yes
interest.
governance yes governance interest तो विकिपीडिया रो स्ट्रेट अवे आई हैव कॉपी पेस्टेड इट ओके बिकॉज़ एथरे बहुत बेसी मुंडा खळा नाही କିଛି गोटे दुटा गोटे सिंगल पॉइंट रे भी तुम लिख परियो दुटा को पॉइंट त माने कोन देखो प्रिकॉशनरी प्रिंसिपल कोन इट इज ए ब्रॉड प्रिंसिपल टू इनोवेशंस with potential for causing harm when extensive scientific knowledge on the matter is lacking okay. So it emphasizes caution pausing and review before leaping into new innovations बर्तन एटा गोटे टिके नारो टर्म वे रे यूज कराला प्रिकॉशनरी प्रिंसिपल टा केवल साइंटिफिक अप्रोच रे यूज करा इन जनरल बहुत सारा जिनस जोटी तुम गोटे जो एक्शन नवा को जाउछ तार ऑल पॉसिबल कॉन्सिक्वेंस विषय तुमको जाना नहीं ओके यू डोंट नो द ऑल पॉसिबल कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस देयर यू शुड बी माने यू शुड टेक प्रिकॉशन दिस इज द पॉइंट जोटी हमर एक्शन नो सब पॉसिबल कॉन्सिक्वेंस हम जान तो ऑब्वियसली वी शुड बी कॉशियस ओके दैट इज द वेरी सिंपल रीजन सो यार केमते गोटे बहुत स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड यू थिंक ऑफ कोविड-19 वैक्सीन जो जेतले वैक्सीन इनिशियली इंट्रोड्यूस हला we did not know कि वैक्सीन नो कौन साइड इफेक्ट रहियो तो there we should have used precautionary principle but the point is we माने in certain aspects we use precautionary principle what precautionary principle हमें यूज करू ना चलो हमें तारा बहुत सारा टेस्टिंग कलु किछि सारा साइंटिफिक स्टडी तारा करी तारा इफेक्टिवनेस चेक कलु बट इन अदर सेंस आल्सो वी डिड नॉट सी हमें तारा लॉन्ग टर्म इफेक्ट को चेक कलु बट पॉइंट इज काई कलु बिकॉज़ हम पाखरे टाइम नथला हमें लाइफ सेव करिया पे हमें माने पूरा डेस्परेशन रे हमें जिंसटा कलु एगेन हमें कौन कलु ना रैपिडली सब जिन बहुत सारा वैक्सीन को हमें क्लियरेंस दे देलु आर यू एबल टू लिंक दिस और नॉट बहुत सारा वैक्सीन को हमें जेति की वर्ष एक्चुअली गोटे वैक्सीन को देखिया गले 2 रु 3 वर्ष मिनिमम लागिया कथा डेवलपमेंट हवा पे तापर तार क्लियरेंस पे आहुरी 2-3 वर्ष तो मिनिमम 5-6 वर्ष लागिया कथा बट बिकॉज कोविड वाज सच एन इमरजेंसी बहुत लोग मरुले तो गवर्नमेंट बहुत सारा गवर्नमेंट कौन कले फास्ट ट्रैक क्लियरेंस ऑलमोस्ट कर देले बहुत सारे जिंस को एक्सपेडाइट कर देले so is this part of precautionary principle no it is not ame eti precautionary principle को implement कलु नहीं and तार impact कौन पड़ेला for example now it is seen that mRNA vaccine no genetic impact रहुची which is long lasting and it might also be hereditary we don't know yet हे पारे कि mRNA vaccine ପାଇଁ future रे किछि issue हे पारे we don't know this is also very controversial I'm not saying this for sure even I don't know for sure similarly if you see many of the vaccines initially they claimed that 100% efficiency gradually they said 90% 80% 60% Pfizer if you see Pfizer vaccine marla last semana kale it is 20% effective okay initially but headline प्रथमे हमें कौन देखिलु समस्त headline देखला 100% effective 99% effective 98% effective you just go through the headline chronologically you will see that over the period of time they have admitted that their efficiency level has decreased I'm not a vaccine I'm not against vaccine okay I support vaccine you should get vaccinated ମୁଁ conspiracy theorist no ମୋ କହିବା କଥା ହଉଛି in some cases we should have taken precaution and proper precaution was not taken because and that is also understandable because we were under tremendous pressure but are you able to understand the precautionary principle or not ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ ଜିନିଷର action ତ ସବୁ possible consequence ଜାଣି ନାଉ ସେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ caution ରେ action ନେବା କଥା okay we should not say କି ଚलो ଏବେ ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ଦେଇଦିଅ for example suppose you don't know कि vaccine ର कौन long term impact रहयो initially you will say कि चलो एटा को हमें कौन terminally ill जो लोक माने हिचन समान को देदवा तापर कहयो कि चलो हमें एटा को healthy adult मान को दवा तापर कहयो चलो हमें women मान को भी दवा last रे का children should come at last so this approach also makes sense because now this approach is part of precautionary principle but suppose को गोटे गवर्नमेंट कहयो कि जबरदस्ती हम सब सिटीजन मान को सब वैक्सीन दे देवा एका संगे now this is going against the principle because you don't know what will be the consequences okay similarly there is another principle called as harm principle माने कौन harm principle को actions of individuals should be limited only to prevent harm to other individuals okay John Stuart Mill देखा हम डिस्कस करले जेएस मिल he was a utilitarian माने पॉलिटिकल साइंस रे बहुत सारा जिंस तांकर कथा अछि सी इनिशियली हार्म प्रिंसिपल को माने एक्सपाउंड करी कहिदिले कि द ओनली पर्पस फॉर व्हिच पावर okay can be rightfully exercised over any member of a civilized community against his will this is important is to prevent harm to others यार बहुत सिंपल सेंस रे हमें कौन करि परिया हमें कहया कि हमें लोकों को ऊपर सेतिकी अमाउंट रे ही रेस्ट्रिक्शन इंपोज करिया जेति कि से माने अन्य को हार्म न करि परिबे ना फॉर एग्जांपल यार यदि ए सेंस रे तुम देखियो कि सपोज हमें फ्रीडम ऑफ फ्री स्पीच शुड फ्री स्पीच बी कटल्ड और नॉट हमें कहया यस वी विल कटल but we will curtail it to only that extent it is not harming others now this will ensure what suppose free speech if you are doing free speech to express yourself simply if you are doing this to access माने access करछ न्यूज़ पई ताले ए सब जिंस ठीक अछि तुम पर्सनल लाइफ रे किछि चैटिंग वैटिंग करछ सब ठीक अछि but when it comes to harming others when you are defamation तुम करछ कहा against it now we will restrict you. When it is against national security, now we will prevent you. Why? Because we are minimizing the harm. Okay, harm को आमे minimize करछि जेपन अन्य को harm करूना सेपन तो ठीक अछि जेतले अन्य को harm करछ सेतले now it is not allowed. Another aspect of this thing, one quotation is there कि your right to swing your arms is limited to my nose, माने sorry, to the outside of my nose or something like that. Okay, माने माने आमे कोन आमे हाथ एमते आमे कहे जे आम इच्छा आमे हाथ केते बुलेई पारिया मैं कहे ठीक अछि तुम हाथ जते मन इच्छा बुला जोठी मो मुह स्टार्ट होची जोठी मो नाक स्टार्ट होची तुम हाथटा सेठी आसी रहयार अछि. इन अदर वर्ड्स तुमरो फ्रीडम पई मते हार्म न पहुंच. देयर इज द हार्म प्रिंसिपल. So you should write one point, you can write about precautionary principle or harm principle. Case study रे भी गोटे single point में लिखि पारियो harm principle कि this action is justified under harm principle. देखो एग्जाम रे सब पॉइंट को डिटेल एक्सप्लेन करिया दरकार नहीं माने you should have trust कि examiner knows. If you just mention that also, that is in some cases that is enough. Okay, मेजर पार्ट टा तो चलो तुमको डिस्कस करिया पड़ियो बट ये छोटा छोटा पॉइंट को तुमने खाली सिंपली फ्रेज रे मेंशन कर देले examiner will be happy. Examiner will know what you are trying to say. Don't think you have to explain everything to the examiner. Now come to the last kind of category, and I have actually made this a separate category. एटा चाहिए मु Indian approach under रे भी कर पारथानी बट मते लागले कि गांधीयन थॉट टा टिके different, so you should write it under. अच्छा last note, this is the second last ଗୋଟେ ଭଲ surprise ଅଛି ତମ ପାଇଁ. So this is the second last approach. This is known as Gandhian principle or Gandhian approach. Theories on ethics given by Gandhi. Again, none of these things are compiled in such way, although these models or these theories are very well known. But if you are writing this, माने मोर जो ये मॉडल तुम लिखियो आंसर टा बहुत सुंदर हो. सो तुम गोटे गांधीयन अप्रोच अंडर रे दु तीन टा पॉइंट जदि लिखि दो बाय द वे ये सब जिंस एक्सप्लेन करा दरकार. दिस इज फॉर योर ओन अंडरस्टैंडिंग ओनली. In exam you should just write in 1 or 2 points कि under this approach you can justify this or not. So देखिए हमें गांधीयन अप्रोच कौन अछि. फर्स्ट थ्योरी होछि गांधीयन ट्रस्टीशिप मॉडल. गोटे स्पेसिफिकली कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस कथा एतले आसीयो ना. कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस चैप्टर रिलेटेड जहां भी एथिकल डिलेमा आसीयो सेठी सपोज को आइछि कि यू आर द सीईओ ऑफ दिस कंपनी तुमको ये डिसीजन नबार अछि शेयर होल्डर मन को एटा करियर अछि सेटा करियर अछि. What kind of decision you are going to take? There you can write about Gandhian trusteeship model. The Gandhian trusteeship model कौन कहूछि. It says that the wealth of the rich is not entirely their private property, not entirely their private property, but they hold it in trust or on behalf of the poor. माने गांधी कहउछन्ति कि सपोज अंबानी हो कि अदानी हो जहां भी पैसा तांकर छै एटा तांको पैसा न सेही पैसाटा तांको पोर लोकंको पई ही तांको पाखरे अछि बोली समान को भाबिया कथा. That is what he is recommending. You should think कि this is not your private property, but you have it so that you can use it for the benefit of the poor. Okay, if you see this poverty is actually one of the keystones of Gandhi's ideology. सब जिंस को से लिंक करते poverty साइन केमिति हमें पोर लोकन को केमिति अपलिफ्ट करिया. तो जदि हमें एई थ्योरी को मानिबा तार आउटकम कोन हो. एथिकल मनी मेकिंग हो. ओके, स्टेकहोल्डर कैपिटलिज्म हो. I had talked about this. Who remembers stakeholder capitalism कोन कार मन अछि को हमें प्रीवियस क्लास रे डिस्कस कर साइछ स्टेकहोल्डर कैपिटलिज्म.
Yes, sir.
What is the meaning?
So to maximize the gains of each stakeholder.
Very good. To maximize the gain of each stakeholder. Capitalism in such a way that each stakeholder को मारो ये को maximize करावा. इटा concept was by Klaus Schwab. Okay. World Economic Forum रो founder. Klaus Schwab had given this concept. He is saying कि what a company इम्तिया decision नबो कि तारो सब stakeholder. For example, who are the stakeholder? तारो shareholders जो माने थिबे, who are also known as owner. तुमे भी यदि stock market रो किनिचो, you are also one of the shareholders. तारो management, तारो board रे जो माने थिबे, तारो customers जो माने थिबे, plus most importantly society in general. Because of these two aspects, this is an ethical kind of action. Stakeholder capitalism कि not only हमें shareholder का profit देखिया, हमें management रो profit देखिया, हमें customer का भी profit no well-being, customer रो भी well-being देखिया, society रो भी well-being देखिया. तो एई समस्त ने तले हमें माने positive देखिया ताले गोटे balanced गोटे जिंस आसीयो, and that is known as that balanced capitalism will be known as stakeholder capitalism. So will this not be an outcome of Gandhian trusteeship model? Yes, this will also be an outcome. corporate governance can be improved, redistribution of wealth in the country can happen, which is the role of government in the same point. Redistribution of wealth, हमें tax करें, rich को tax करें, poor को तारा proceeds को आने की दो. Say related गोटे similar concept अच्छी 3Es model. This is not a Gandhian concept, not Gandhian, okay. But in general, this is a concept that you can write in corporate governance, CG. Corporate governance गोटे 3Es model अच्छी. तीनटा E आम पाई सबले हमें देखिए important. गोटे होची economy, गोटे हला efficiency, गोटे हला effectiveness. Okay. आमे कहे कि तीनटा आको जोटी जो जगह थिवो, that kind of decision is good for that corporate governance. Okay. Corporate governance रे हमें तीनटा आको जिंसो को balance करिया को try करिया. Oh, wait. Is this ecology? I'm not sure. Can someone just check this? Mother doubt होची effectiveness or ecology? Anyway, I'll check and I'll tell you next class. Don't worry. मुनाले group रे update कर दे. मुझे निजे diagram ना करी चुम forgot economy, efficiency and something else. चलो कोई नहीं. I'll update this. Next part is
Sir,
next theory is known as
हाँ. Sir,
yes,
economy,
yes.
efficiency and effectiveness.
Effectiveness. ठीक है
Yes,
चलो
sir.
original टा ठीक है बट मते लाଗୁଛି ecology should also come into this thing ना कोई नहीं ये तो stakeholder capitalism अच्छा stakeholder capitalism रे एटा भी आसियो by the way your environment will also come because environmental pollution for example this will come in negative externalities है ना बहुत सारा positive and negative externalities भितरे environmental pollution जदी होची सेटा negative externalities रे आसियो economics रे किछि concept अछि so stakeholder capitalism also takes into account environment so this will also come in under this aspect stakeholder capitalism under ratio ecology okay then let us move on to the next part seven social sins or seven sins of better seven sins of gandhiji but actually this theory was given by donaldson I saw that in many coaching center material also someone accused so likhi dejan seven sins of gandhiji so eta oda pore colloquially eta develop heji mane oda consensus based re but otherwise if you see this the original theory was given by donaldson okay, frederick donaldson was a person but gandhi only repeated this thing he quoted this thing in his newspaper young india so eta kon ta satala sin kon wealth without work pleasure without conscience knowledge without character commerce without morality science without humanity religion without sacrifice and politics without principle okay. तो यार for example you think ये जो each and every sin रे outcome कौन हो suppose wealth without work तो माने कौन corruption corruption माने ही से ना तुम किसी काम न करी तुम wealth generate करूछ pleasure without conscience এটা কোন হবে this will be called as hedonism okay so which is an extreme form of materialism knowledge without character याको कोन कहबो knowledge without character हां चलो सेमती तो टर्म स्पेसिफिक टर्म किछि नाही so this is some kind of misguided knowledge okay? knowledge रो dangerous use भी परियो commerce without morality यार भी सेमती कि स्पेसिफिक टर्म नाही commerce without morality किछि माने करप्शन भले सिमिलरली समान साइंस विदाउट ह्यूमैनिटी साइंस विदाउट ह्यूमैनिटी कौन यार गोटे भल कोटेशन अच्छी कि साइंस विदाउट ह्यूमैनिटी इज सॉरी ह्यूमैनिटी विदाउट साइंस इज कौन से टर्म एग्जैक्टली मन पड़न कोटेशन एंड साइंस विदाउट ह्यूमैनिटी इज ब्लाइंड एमती किसी गोटे टर्म अच्छी ना आई थिंक आइंस्टाइन ही गोटे कोटेशन देते
So, science without religion is lame, and religion
yes
without
yes
science
without science is
is blind.
very good very excellent who is saying this what's your name
So, Elora.
okay very good so science and religion say related quite science and religion but again एठी religion को way रे use हेची humanity way रे ही use हेची or human perspective way रे ही use हेची so science without humanity you can understand this for example आमे एमितिया किछि गोटे experiment करिया जोथरे humans मान को harm होबो so that is science without humanity religion without sacrifice what is a religion without sacrifice this is a dogmatic religion okay or this is a cult okay so this cannot be religion only when you put some sacrifice then it is religion so here religion is used in a positive sense okay so science जदि sorry sacrifice तुम यदि न करियो ताले religion टा गोटे negative way रे चलतियो dogma or cult हिजो politics without principle एंड यार outcome कोन politics without principle
Dynasty politics.
मेगालोमानिया, बेटर वर्ड इज मेगालोमानिया ना, क्रेविंग फॉर पावर, सब बड़े खाली पावर पावर हो, मेगालोमानिया. So these are some of the outcomes which will happen out of these sins. देखो एग्जाम रे although I know कि यूपीएससी रे गोटे क्वेश्चन डायरेक्टली पचारि दिथिले से माने कि राइट व्हाट आर द 7 सोशल सेंस और 7 सेंस ऑफ गांधी जी, write about them or something, but I doubt whether that question will be repeated. But OPSC रे पचारि पारंती, if you want you can try to remember them, the रट्टा मारी घोषियो दी घोषियो, but otherwise what I will recommend कि माने just revise it 2-3 times, जतटा पॉइंट मन पड़े सेतिका लिखियो. ओके, जोटा न मन पड़े सेटा जबरदस्ती लिखिया दरकार नहीं, तापरे ईटीसी लिखि छाड़ दो. गांधीज तलिस्मान फाइनली एटा को बही रे सब देखिथियो, सब एनसीईआरटी बही रे एटा थाई कि नहीं, प्राय मैक्सिमम एनसीईआरटी बही रे एटलीस्ट आगुर सब आसला, एबे आसु कि नहीं मु जानि. प्रिएम्बल गोटे स्टार्टिंग रे थाए, नले गांधीज तलिस्मान थाए. So this also you can write in as part of Gandhian ethical perspective. So try to understand. Suppose again, this is something to resolve ethical dilemma. Okay, this is a very direct tool which has been given by Gandhiji to resolve ethical dilemma. Gandhi कहले कि तुम्हारो जतबे भी गोटे see this line, whenever you are in doubt, so that means what, गोटे ethical dilemma आछि, or when the self becomes too much with you, apply the following test. Test कौन ना, गांधी कहते कि you try to recall the face of the poorest person you have ever seen, poorest and the weakest person. Again you see सब से poverty आडू पड़े आसे, poor and weak, and you ask yourself कि whether your action is going to benefit him or not, whether it will be of any use to him, if it can restore any control to him over his life. So that means if that can do it, that means it will lead to Swaraj. What is the meaning of Swaraj? In very crude term you can call Atmanirbhar, or you can even call self-dependency or self-sufficiency, or politically it meant self-rule. Okay. Here it is maintained in this way, self-sufficiency way. So will your action lead to Swaraj for the hungry and the millions? If it is yes, the answer is yes, then that is an ethical decision. If no, then you should not take that action. Okay. So that means what? Which virtues are Gandhiji emphasizing on? Beneficence, welfareism, okay, and Swaraj in itself. You can write this also. Swaraj को quotation mark भी लिख पारियो, no issue. So these are the different virtues that Gandhi's talisman is advocating for. Okay. बुझियो कि नहीं? Any doubts so far?
सर ये जो तालिस्मान टेस्ट को हमें एग्जाम रे तो पूरा एमती डिस्क्राइब करके लिखलो ना
ना
सर,
ना जमा लिखियो.
एग्जांपल उठे दे दियंतु केमती हमें ताको पुट करी कि तालिस्मान टेस्ट.
सपोज देखो केमती को टाइप रो जाकर लिखियो तमे. सपोज क्वेश्चन आछि कि as an administrator you have maybe some control over some funds, how are you going to use that fund? Suppose तुम्हारा ethical dilemma होची, either you can use it for, चलो use it for scientific purpose, science में use कर परियो, or you can use for some poverty alleviation program. तो here what you can say कि instead of, देखो मैक्सिमम पिला कौन कहे, मैक्सिमम पिला कहे कि देखो हम फंड को 50-50 डिवाइड कर दा, मिडिल पाथ अप्रोच पा कोई किछि न आसले लास्ट रे समस्त से यही लेकिन मिडिल पाथ है, हम साइंस को भी दबा, पोवर्टी एलिवेशन को भी दबा. नाउ यू शुड यूज सम, देखो मोरल रीजनिंग रो माने कोन, एथिरे तुम आउट के अधिया मुंडो खटेयो, तुम कहबो कि हमें साइंस पे कोन 50% दबाटा नेसेसरी की, रादर तुम कहबो कि हमें साइंस पे मे बी 20% दबा, 80% दबा पोवर्टी एलिवेशन पे. तारो रीजन एंड हाउ विल यू जस्टिफाई इट? यू विल जस्टिफाई इट इन द सेंस कि साइंटिफिक प्रोग्राम गुडा टिके लॉन्ग ड्यूरेशन लॉन्ग टर्म तारो बेनिफिट गुडा आसिया को टाइम लागियो. Whereas poverty alleviation program, if we do this, we will make a lot of people capable, तांको capable करिया, तांको human resource को हमें develop करिया in a relatively short period of time. Now, many of these will also go to work in scientific field or not. So indirectly this is also helping you. Although another one will say कि चलो scientific outcome भी help करियो poverty alleviation, but poverty alleviation scientific outcome टा help करियो बेसी time ना. So our priority should be poverty alleviation program. So 50-50 no करके maybe you can say 80-20 or even 70-30. Now while justifying this, one point you can write this, that this is also in accordance with Gandhi's talisman. Just सेतिकी लिखिया रही हूँ, बेसी एक्सप्लेन करिया नहीं. Gandhi's talisman लिखी दी कि ना, talisman लिखी दी कि ताको एमतिया अंडरलाइन कर दो. Then person will know कि okay what he has written, they will understand. Don't write then explain ता bracket लिखियो कि Gandhi's talisman means that Gandhi had said you remember the poorest man. किच्छे explain करिया दरकार नहीं. Examiner knows what is Gandhi's talisman. तुम्हें बस एटा मेंशन कलो गोटे पॉइंट दैट इज इंपोर्टेंट unless the question itself is on Gandhi's Talisman and that will usually not be the case एमती डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन आसीबनी कि तुम लिखो व्हाट इज Gandhi's Talisman okay one point only so now this is actually the value addition that you should write and this point most people will not write and this is that you are writing now moral thinkers from Odisha now Odisha perspective किछि ओडिया moral philosopher or thinkers मान को perspective तुम लिखियार अछि कहार कहार लिख परियो गोपबंधु दास कर पर्सपेक्टिव लिख परियो व्हिच आर द वर्च्यूज दैट ही चैंपियन को वर्च्यू को से सपोर्ट करथिले हमें सही वर्च्यू को देकी जस्टिफाई कर परिया फॉर एग्जांपल इन एनी डिलेमा रिलेटेड टू वेलफेयरिज्म यू कैन राइट कि दिस इज आल्सो इन अकॉर्डेंस विथ द वर्च्यूज व्हिच वर एडवोकेटेड बाय गोपबंधु दास ओके चैरिटी पैट्रियोटिज्म upliftment of the poor and the helpless sacrifice okay yes someone asking के पचार no so these are the virtues that you should write about किछि question something related to sacrifice is there definitely write about गोपबंधु दास तुम्हें एते दुनिया सारा मदर टेरेसा ये से दुनिया कथा लिखियो बट ओसीएस एग्जाम रे यदि गोपबंधु दास कथा न लिखियो आई मीन न लिखले सेमति किछि हबन बट if you write it it will be a value addition similarly you see this भीम भोई कर ए लाइन टा बहुत ही फेमस कि let my life suffer in hell but let the world be saved what is the odia translation odia mean sorry this is the english translation what is the odia original कौन कहथिले
ମୋ ଜୀବନ ପଛେ ନର୍କ ପଡ଼ିଥାଉ ଜଗତ ଉଦ୍ଧାର ହେଉ।
very good so say odia part ta likhioni because your script is in english so directly write this translation they will understand which quotation you are talking about so जगत उद्धार हो let my life suffer in hell okay but let the world be saved so this means what को virtue गुडा को importance से दूसरे sacrifice welfare okay? poverty even poverty alleviation this is also an example poverty alleviation we can quote similarly in the end you should write a holistic perspective if you see Odisha culture or Odia culture this is also synonymous with Jagannath culture or not even though Jagannath is not the only cultural element but Jagannath culture तक माने ओडिया कल्चर गोटे सेंट्रल टेनेट होची जगन्नाथ कल्चर सो हम जगन्नाथ कल्चर रो एथिकल वैल्यूज कोन अछि देयर यू कैन मेंशन डिवोशन और सरेंडर है ना जो भक्ति जो भाव अछि ना दैट डिवोशन इज आल्सो पार्ट ऑफ द सोशियो रिलीजियस मूवमेंट हम देखलो भक्ति सूफी मूवमेंट सेथरे पढिथिला कि नहीं डिवोशन इटसेल्फ इट इज अ वर्च्यू इट इज कंसीडर्ड अ वर्च्यू you are surrendering yourself to god so okay that is one aspect bliss or ananda that so this is something related to spiritualism but more importantly these two aspects you can write about community life harmony and brotherhood you can give example ki well example लेते दवार तो scope नहीं but you can understand community life with harmony कौन आसा different sections of people they come together सेठी इक्वालिटी भी अच्छी एठी कुआ होई कि रथ यात्रा रे किछि बड़ सान किछि नाहंती समस्त समान so that is the day when all the social hierarchy is destroyed or at least one day everyone is equal so these are ethical values or not equality community life devotion these are all ethical values you can definitely write this as one aspect of analysis
सर डिवोशन टाको हमें केम डिवोशन या सरेंडर को केमते हमें
ना एटा
ये कर
practically case study रे ethical dilemma रे यूज कर just because
ओके
जगन्नाथ कल्चर में गोटा पॉइंट लिखली तो कण इंडिया लिखियो कि मते सुपीरियर माने डिमांड करछन तो मु डिवोशन ही which is part of जगन्नाथ कल्चर don't force it जा जा माने तो चल एटा ethical dilemma रे आसीनी एटा काटी के लिए बट bliss भी में भी आसीनी ए दिटा जिंस आसीयो these two are very important parts community life equality ये सब जिंस आसीयो हार्मनी एंड ब्रदरहुड जो केस रे सपोज कम्युनल राइट्स ऊपर गोटे एथिकल डिलेमा आस्ते और कम्युनल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऊपर आस्ते डेफिनेटली राइट अबाउट जगन्नाथ कल्चर कैन गिव एग्जांपल ऑफ सालवेग फॉर एग्जांपल दे पारे भक्त सालवेग फॉर एग्जांपल ओके ऑल्दो एति स्कोप आसीवन एग्जाम लेट मी टेल यू डोंट थिंक कि गोटे केस स्टडी रे तुम एते सारा जिंस लिख करियो जस्ट राइट वन पॉइंट खाली कि जगन्नाथ कल्चर रो वैल्यू होची गोटे एटा इक्वालिटी और कम्युनिटी लाइफ
सर
एनी डाउट्स ओवर
सर
यस
सर भीम भोईरे कौन कहले पोवर्टी इराडिकेशन केमिति लिंक करबा हेटा
पोवर्टी एलिविएशन इन जनरल एनो कथा से कहउचंदी कि जो जगत उद्धार हो मो जीवन पछे नर्क पड़ताओ जगत उद्धार हो से एग्जैक्टली को सेंस रे कहचन से कोन लिखि सम तो जाय ना इन जनरल महिमा धर्म रे तुम देखियो So गोटे ओवरऑल माने जो oppressed section of people एमान को बहुत importance दिया है actually. One of the main reasons for popularity of Mahima Dharma was because it was not elitist. It was a popular movement, mass movement type of mass movement term ठीक नो popular movement. तो लोकल कर सॉरी लोकल लोकंकर लैंग्वेज रे तांको सेंटिमेंट तांको इश्यू को टेक अप करिकि से रिलीजन टा एते फेमस हे पार तो तांकर इश्यू कोन पॉवर्टी इज वन ऑफ देयर मेन इश्यूज ओके so in that sense he had said ki कि जगत उद्धार हो माने यू कैन टेक इट फ्रॉम एन स्पिरिचुअल सेंस आल्सो स्पिरिचुअल सेंस रे एटा हो कि जगत उद्धार हवाटा को सेंस जाउ जो साल्वेशन सेंस है कि people should get out of the cycle of birth and rebirth okay but you can also take it in a material sense in the sense that माने जो poor people अछन से माने डेवलप ही
सर किछि
any other doubt
सर किछि केस स्टडी रे जो थाए कि निज को माने सेल्फ को हार्म हबो किंतु कम्युनिटी को बेनिफिट मिलिबो तो सेठी सर केते एक्सटेंड पर्यंत निज को हार्म टा जस्टिफाई करि हबो
तुम्हें यदि लिखियो कि मु मोर लाइफ जीवन दे देमी एंड से मो एक्चुअली जो मिसु मोर देह देश माटी रे प्रैक्टिकली से बळे आंसर लिखियो that will not be believable that my guess is that that may not be believable and see that is very noble तुम्हें एटा करिया भी कथा तुम भाव इट्स ग्रेट बट एथिकल स्टडी रे whether you should write it point is कि हेई पारे एंड मोस्ट केसेस रे से हबो कि तुमर जीवन दबार दरकार आवश्यकता नाही फॉर एग्जांपल सपोज कोठी गोटे बन्या हो चलो as an administrator or as a police officer or whatever to what extent you are supposed to act हमें मैनेज कर देबा हमें लोक माने मैन मैनेजमेंट करी कि मैक्सिमम लोक को बचाई पारिया सपोज सेते बेले भी तुम रात रे खबर आसले कि एठी कोडा लोक बुडी जाउछि तुम कोन पर्सनली जाई कि हेठी पहरी कि जाई बंचेबो माय पॉइंट इज दैट तुम ए भला इम्प्रैक्टिकल आंसर लिखियो आई एम इवन गिविंग यू वेरी माने प्राइवेट ओपिनियन ऑफ माइन ମୁଁ ବହୁତ ବେଳେ ଏଇ ସବୁ ଜିନିଷ ଦେଖିକି ନ୍ୟୁଜ ମିଡିଆରେ ଆସିକି ଚलो କଲେକ୍ଟର ନିଜେ ଯାଇକି ଏଠି କୋଉଠି have you seen this or not ଯୋଉ ଚ୍ୟାରିଟି କାମରେ ଏଠି ଯାଇକି ନିଜେ ହାତରେ ଉଠେଇଲେ ସେଟା ଗୋଟେ ବହୁତ ମିଡିଆ କେସ୍ ହେଇଯାଏ ତ ମତେ ସେଇଟା ବେଳେ ବେଳେ ଲାଫେବଲ ଲାଗେ କି यार ସେଠି ତ ସାଇଡରେ ଆହୁରି 10ଟା ଲୋକ ଯୋଉ ଡେଲି ଲେବରର they are also doing the work why their labor is not appreciated କଲେକ୍ଟର ଗୋଟେ ଦିନ ଯାଇକି କରିଦେଲେ ଆଉ the argument is here କି କଲେକ୍ଟର is giving a message कि ଦେଖ ମୁଁ ବି ଗ୍ରାଉଣ୍ଡରେ ଆସି କାମ କରୁଛି but again counter argument to this can be is that the work of the collector work एटा नुह कि सी जन को रिप्लेस कर देबे गोटे जो मैनुअल लेबर को जन को रिप्लेस कर देबे तांको से पोस्ट एथपे दिया हिची आफ्टर सो मच रिगरस टेस्टिंग एंड ऑल एंड एक्सपीरियंस he or she is expected to manage his or her team so smoothly that it can be taken care of by other people by specialist जदि ता परे भी तांको ग्राउंड रे काम करिया पड़छ ता माने कोन तांकर मैनेजमेंट ठीक हेइ तारम सिंपल माने ये है ना मे बी he or she was not able to put the right person in the ground so ता माने कोन आमे केते लेवल बचन सैक्रिफाइस करदा आमे कलेक्टर हे कि निजे जाई कि सिर्फ उठेया देखो तुम यदि मेसेज पठाया पे करू तो ठीक अछि यू आर लीडिंग फ्रॉम द फ्रंट दैट इज फाइन पर तुम कहबो मु जीवन दे देई करी अरे जीवन देवा दरकार नै rather your brain will be more valuable to the country and the state in the long run okay so that is what is going to be appreciated माने पागल वाला लिखिबनी कि ମୁଁ ଲାଷ୍ଟ ଯଦି ଆଉ କେହି ଲୋକ ନ ମିଳିଲେ ମୁଁ ନିଜେ ପହଁରି ପହଁରି ଯାଇକି ତାକୁ ଉଦ୍ଧାର କରି ଆଣିବି that is not considered believable है ना so are you able to understand को एक्सटेंड जाए लिखियो तुम्हें लिखियो कि ମୁଁ ମ୍ୟାନ ମ୍ୟାନେଜमेंट କରିଦେବି ଏମିତି କରିଦେବି ସେମିତି କରିଦେବି ଏମିତି लिखियोନି ମୁଁ ଜୀବନ ଦେଇଦେବି
हां सर
any other doubt नहीं then I think we should today maybe take up for 10-15 minutes another small topic of society ର ଗୋଟେ part ଆମେ ଛାଡ଼ିଥିଲୁ okay so let me just check this କୋଉଠି ଆସିବ hang on a second 10-15 minute ର ଆଜି ଅଛି class okay yeah I got it Are you able to see my screen or not? Screen दिखाओ.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Okay. So let's just start with this chapter today. आज हम सारी परियानी, but ठीक अच्छी. अल्प टिके बस पढ़िया. गोटे chapter रही regionalism, right? And let us see what is the meaning of regionalism. Region रू word रू आसी term टा regionalism. किसी देखो ये chapter रो बेसिक किसी running note नवा दरकार नहीं. जब पाखरे खाता नहीं भी ठीक अच्छी. ए PDF टा एमती भी तुमको मिल जाओ. Just try to understand ए understand. I know कि आप बेसिक सिमती patience भी नहीं थी बस ये सब running note नवा को. Just try to understand कि कौन अच्छी. खाली story वाले सुना. What is the meaning of regionalism? Region based ideology जोड़ा that is regionalism. Region based ideology कौन ना region को जतबेला आमे preference और importance दोचु over our state or the country, so then that is problematic. देखो problem सतबेला आसीबनी जतबेला कि तुम तुम region को भलो पाउछ. खाली तो भल पाइले तो बहुत भलो कथा. आमे ओडिसा को भल पाए बहुत भलो कथा. तुम संबलपुर को कि वेस्टर्न ओडिसा को भल पाए बहुत भलो कथा. बट से भलो पाइबाटा जतले आउ कहार कॉस्ट रे आसीबो. तुम जन one person को भलो पाउछ but that person turned out to be the wife of some other person. That is problematic, है ना. Problem is not when you are loving your own wife. Problem is when it is being done at the cost of someone else. Okay. So this problem will come when regionalism comes at the cost of the state or the country. So state or the country mane when the phenomenon of people's loyalty being based on a local region in preference over the state or the country. यार गोटे अदर डेफिनेशन भी अच्छी. the common identity and purpose among the people of a specific geographical area sharing a common language culture or border. कॉमन लैंग्वेज कल्चर और बॉर्डर भितर जो लोकंकर कॉमन आइडियोलॉजी आइडेंटिटी एंड सेंस ऑफ लाइफ अच्छी गोटे पर्पस अच्छी दैट इज नोन एज रीजनलिज्म. एटा टिके पॉजिटिव एस्पेक्ट रे डिफाइन हिची, एटा गोटे नेगेटिव एस्पेक्ट रे डिफाइन हिची. बट इन जनरल इफ यू सी रीजनलिज्म इज मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम नेगेटिव एस्पेक्ट रे निया जाए. तुम एग्जाम रे जहाँ क्वेश्चन पचरा हो नेगेटिव वे रे पचरा हो कि ए जिनसटा काहे की होची कोन प्रॉब्लम अछि ट्राई टू एक्सप्लेन. So try to understand कि regionalism India रे develop केमती हला. What is the history of regional movements in India? Although directly ये question आसीबनी, but the history perspective is ये कि तुम किसी example ले किसी लिख करियो. देखो actually देखिया गले regionalism तो बहुत आगरो India रे भी अच्छी. If you see even in the ancient ages, in the medieval ages, there was also regionalism. In the sense कि गोटे region रो लोग निज लोगों को ही पसंद करिए, निज culture को prefer करिए. But regional movement or regionalism as a movement आमे identify usually करू colonial government time. Okay. Because if you एटा यार ओटा बहुत ही psychological reason simply अछि हमर जते भी सारा देशर जहाँ भी इश्यू अछि ना corruption poverty ए सब रो blame आमे start करू colonial रू. आमे केबे भी हमर निजर ancient past को धरू ना. Because हमर या द्वारा कोन आमे को कि यार ब्रिटिशर माने आसी हमको एक्सप्लोर करले सेट तो सब प्रॉब्लम बाहर छी. Otherwise, in reality, let me tell you, regionalism is even as old as ancient India. But chalo, we'll start from colonial roots. Colonial times रो यार root start ହେଇଛି ବୋଲି ଆମେ କହୁଛେ. तो कौन problem ହେଲା divide and rule policy. एटा तो modern Indian history रे पढ़िथियो. divide and rule policy रे कौन होला किछि टाइप रो लोगों को किछि community को कह दिया होला कि you are one type of person, community, another one person. किछि सेमती region रो लोगों को भी divide and rule policy रे divide करियो ट्राई कराला. And the best example for that is Bengal partition. Bengal partition, if you have read in modern India, they tried to divide Bengal in such a way that there was Eastern Bengal and there was Western Bengal. Eastern Bengal को एमितिया divide करियो माने कोन देखो हम चाहिए एमितिया भी divide कर पारताने. जाने जाने ब्रिटिशर माने एमितिया divide vertically divide करियो ट्राई कले because Eastern Bengal was mostly Muslim dominated areas, which is now currently known as Bangladesh and parts of northeastern India. Whereas Western Bengal or West Bengal currently as it is Hindu dominated. So this also created regionalism or not. Now West Bengal people will prefer their people, East Bengal people will prefer East Bengal people. Okay. So this is an example of divide and rule policy of the British. Then secondly, there was also this problem of princely states. Many people think कि जब माने ब्रिटिशर माने कंप्लीट इंडिया ऊपर कंट्रोल रखते दे डिड नॉट हैव कंट्रोल ओवर कंप्लीट इंडिया टिल द एंड. रिमेंबर दिस. एंड इफ यू सी दिस मैप, in this map you see these parts Bengal, Bihar, okay, parts of Madras, Bombay, central provinces, United Provinces, these were the British Indian Territory, BIT. means these were under British control. But the other parts, if you see the blue parts, these are the princely states. Now, can you see how big these princely states were? Okay. Britishers never had 100% control over entire India, geographical India area of India. So you see what is the level of princely states. In fact, 562 plus or 565 plus princely states were there by the time of independence. Many of these were very small states. For example, in Mayurbhanj in Odisha, that was a very small princely states. But these princely states, you see how big these are. What is the problem with this? The problem with this was that people in this British Indian territory were treated in a different manner, and princely state people were treated in a different manner. Similarly, during the mass movement, usually the mass movement was more popular in the British Indian territory, and it was less popular or less developed in the princely states, because the princes were in support of the Britishers, and they were very exploitative, and they tortured and they subjugated their subjects to a great extent. If you see in our modern Indian history, only towards 1936 around, only then Congress took a stance कि नहीं चलो एबे हो जे आम जो पूर्ण स्वराज आम डिमांड करछु, this is for entire India including princely states. Otherwise before that also they did not take into account the princely states. तो ये सब जिनस कहर पॉइंट कौन, ये सब जिनस कहर पॉइंट हूँ या कि जेहेतु आम गोटे कॉमन हिस्ट्री शेयर करते भी डिफरेंट रीजन रो लोक माने डिफरेंट लेवल रे नेशनल पॉलिटिक्स संगे इंटीग्रेटेड थिले, सेथिपाई रीजनलिज्म रो फीलिंग डेवलप होवाटा स्वाभाविक. फॉर एग्जांपल, the level of feeling maybe in central provinces may not be the same as that in Hyderabad. Why? Because the people of Hyderabad had not been part of direct freedom struggle for a long time. So can that not be a reason for our colonial roots of regional movement? Yes, it can be. Even till now, many of the, if you see the legacy problems of India, if you see many of the princely states, the level of controversial age. So I hope you are able to understand, okay, what I am trying to say. You will certainly get an example. कौन है जी कौन नहीं. Different area रे तुम examine करो, you will understand कि को level ले कितने हमरो feeling regional feeling अच्छी, कोथरे कोटी बेसी अच्छी कोटी कम अच्छी. Okay. Next part is something known as Dravida Nadu movement. एक कथा मैं आगुरी तुमको कही okay, Dravida Nadu movement we discussed about EVR Naikar or Periyar. He was the one who proposed a sovereign country called Dravida Nadu. तारा नाम एटा भी से रखा चाहते साउथ इंडिया, also called Deccan Federation, also called Dakshina Patha. If you see in ancient Indian history रे उत्तर पथ दक्षिण पथ सुन कि नहीं? You know this or not? Anyone?
No,
उत्तर
sir.
पथ दक्षिण पथ, उत्तर पथ गोटे एपटू सेंट्रल एशिया रो आसी लाइन टा थिला. ओके, एटा पूरा से टाइम रो इंद्रप्रस्थ और दिल्ली एरिया रो सेपटू जाईकी प्लस यूपी एरिया है कि लास्ट इट वाज एंडिंग एट तामलुक. ସେତେବେଳେ ତାମଲୁକ ୱେଷ୍ଟ ବେଙ୍ଗଲ ତାମଲୁକର ନାମ ଥିଲା ତାମ୍ରଲିପ୍ତି. that was known as ଉତ୍ତର ପଥ, and this was also linked to ଏପଟେ ସିଲ୍କ ରୁଟ୍ ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ଗୋଟେ ଲିଙ୍କ ଥିଲା. ସିଲ୍କ ରୁଟ୍ ଯୋଉ ଚାଇନା ରୁ ପୁରା ମିଡଲ ଇଷ୍ଟ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଯାଇଥିଲା ନା, ସେଟା ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ଲିଙ୍କ ଥିଲା. So this had gone, this route was linking North India to this Middle India. Then there was another route, there was this route, another route from this area. They were avoiding this Dandakaranya. এটা ওটা বহুত ହି জঙ্গল এরিয়া ଥିଲା Dandakaranya. এই ସବୁ ଏରିଆ ଆଗରୁ ଥିଲା actually. ତ ଏଥିରୁ ସବୁ ଷ୍ଟୋରିଜ ରେ ବି ଶୁଣିଥିବ. ତାକୁ ଆଭଏଡ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଏମିତି ଦୁଇଟା ରାସ୍ତା ଥିଲା. Now these routes were known as ଦକ୍ଷିଣ ପଥ, ଉତ୍ତର ପଥ and ଦକ୍ଷିଣ ପଥ. These were our national highways of that time, you can call it that. So accordingly, Periyar wanted to revive this concept. He said कि ये हम South Indian रो हमें ये area टारो नाम दबा दक्षिण पथ बोली. Okay. Similarly, if you see Tamil nationalism, it started from this concept. Tamijakam, देखा एटा को Tamijakam बहुत लोग pronounce करते. Actually, this is pronounced as Tamilakam. हमारो जो ळ word टा ଅଛି ना से pronounce करा ज नो ऐसे ळ Tamilakam. Tamilakam माने होची Tamil kingdom. Again, from ancient India through medieval India, this Tamil nationalism has remained. कि Tamil is a separate state and it has a very glorious past. So this is also an example of regionalism. And because, can you understand how history is impacting our present? You see, because of these historical incidents, till now in Tamil Nadu there is a great opposition to any kind of Hindi language. ताको से रेलवे स्टेशन ने लिखा है तो बोर्ड रे जो हिंदी लिखा है तो से साइन को साइन भांगी दे केही हिंदी रे कहला न तो गो टू चेन्नई यू विल सी इट हिंदी रे कथा का स्टार्ट कर लोक चिड़ी है लोकल लोक so why because of historical incident also you know, Tamil nationalism was very strong similarly तो यार प्रॉब्लम कौन हला देखो साउथ इंडिया रे जो लैंग्वेज बेसिस से एते सारा मूवमेंट स्टार्ट हला लिंग्विस्टिक बेसिस ऑफ मूवमेंट स्टार्ट हला ସେମାନେ କହିଲେ କି ଆମର ଯଦି ଡିଫରେଣ୍ଟ ଲାଙ୍ଗୁଏଜ ଅଛି ତାହେଲେ we should have a different state. Initially our number of state was very less. I think around କେତେ 12-13ଟା or ସେମିତି ବହୁତ
14.
ବହୁତ ହି କମ ନମ୍ବର 14 right 14 ଟା ଥିଲା ତାପରେ I think first states reorganization act ପରେ ବୋଧେ 16 state ଦୁଇଟା state ନୂଆ ହେଲା ଆଉ 6 UTs or something ଏମିତି ହେଇଥିଲା right. So this states reorganization act ରେ ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣମେଣ୍ଟ ବାଧ୍ୟ ହେଲା कि नुआ स्टेट फॉर्मेशन को अलाउ करेगु ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ लैंग्वेज सेपरेट लैंग्वेज रे सेपरेट स्टेट दवा पे समाने बाध्य है now when that happened then gradually the Dravida Nadu movement weakened because once तुम आमे तुमर किछ डिमांड फुलफिल कर दोछु ना लोक माने आ केते आंदोलन करे तने कहे चलो हम तो लैंग्वेज बेसिस रे सेपरेट स्टेट मिल गेला तुम काहे कि आ सेपरेट कंट्री कथा कहउछ किछ त हमको कंसेशन मिलना ना so that weakened the movement. Actually, the central government was forced to do this because of huge protest. Specifically in Andhra Pradesh, there was one person known as Potti Sri Ramulu. I don't know if I have written this or not. What the note? Potti Sri Ramulu. Yes, Potti Sri Ramulu katha achi. Potti Sri Ramulu actually demanded separate Andhra Pradesh. 1954 रे तांकर death हेगला hunger strike. He was demanding a separate Andhra Pradesh for Telugu speaking people. Now, because of his death, the government was forced to set up this commission, Fazal Ali Commission, also known as States Reorganization Commission. On the basis of recommendation of this commission, this State Reorganization Act 1956 was passed, which allowed for creation of linguistic basis of states. And after that happened, this Dravida Nadu movement weakened, gradually weakened. So it was southern India re India regionalism grow and reduce. Even till now, you can write about current scenario also. Current scenario रे कौन अछि linguistic basis state तो demand fulfill हो गला तापर भी सेमाने what they are opposing right now is no Hindi imposition सेमाने कहते हिंदी को जबरदस्ती imposition करो नहीं this phrase you can write no Hindi imposition 2000 रे कौन हला regionalism वाजपेयी गवर्नमेंट तीनटा स्टेट को that allowed to form उत्तर प्रदेश टा भांगी गला उत्तराखंड तार गोटे पार्ट बिहार टा भांगी गला झारखंड मध्य प्रदेश गोटे पार्ट भांगी गला छत्तीसगढ़ what was the reason for these actually the separation or regionalism which was growing in the 1990s to 2000 the reason for that was not based on language एमानकर language basis न नथला एमानकर अन्य डिमांड for example if you see यूपी उत्तराखंड माने से हिंदी रो ही डिफरेंट डायलेक्ट से ही कथा होछ बिहार झारखंड अगेन हिंदी रो डिफरेंट डायलेक्ट एमपी छत्तीसगढ़ चलो एबे तो छत्तीसगढ़ छत्तीसगढ़ी बोली कहउछन but again that is very similar to Hindi and it has developed from Hindi so language was not the issue was the new grounds of demand that is sense of relative deprivation कि आमे लेस डेवलप होछु हमरो जो जहां अंडर रे आमे छु सेमाने बेसी डेवलप हे होछु उत्तराखंड लोगों कंप्लेन थिला कि सब किछि पैसा जाउछि यूपी रो सेंटर को which is for example Lucknow which is for example other parts like Raebareli ये सब को जाउ उत्तराखंड पार्ट को ही जाउ नहीं झारखंड वाला सेमती कहले कि सब जाउ पटना को रांची को किसी जाउ तो रिलेटिव डेप्रिवेशन इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ एंड डेवलपमेंट हमारा डेवलपमेंट से सेम रेट रे हो नहीं पॉलिटिकल एस्पिरेशंस वेरी इंपोर्टेंट द लीडरशिप इन दीज स्टेट्स दे वर वेरी पॉलिटिकली एक्टिव सेमानकर निजरो नैरो पॉलिटिकल एम्बिशन भी थिला उत्तराखंड वाला जी करथिले से दे वांटेड टू बी चीफ मिनिस्टर तेलंगाना रे भी and KCR was leading that movement he became the first chief minister of Telangana till now I think election पर छड़ा he lost but he was from the beginning he was the chief minister why because he was one of the main proponents तांकर निजर political aspiration थिला they wanted autonomy from the main state means तांकर freedom to choose to have power to have funds and regionalism also one of the and a sabu misiki भी you can say कि one of the outcomes was regionalism and regionalism sense grow hela bali last finally we gave them separate state जदि अच्छा एथरो गोटे जिंस हमर माने पड़ला गोटे कांसेप्ट मन रखो regionalism गोटे एमितिया जिंस ଯେତେବେଳେ ଇନିସିଆଲି ଗ୍ରୋ କରୁଥିବ ସମସ୍ତେ ତାକୁ କହିବେ କି ଆରେ ଏଟା ନେଗେଟିଭ ଜିନିଷ, ସବୁ ତାର କ୍ରିଟିସିଜମ କରିବେ। ରିଜନାଲିଜମ ଟା ଯେତେବେଳେ ସକ୍ସେସଫୁଲି ସକ୍ସେସ ହେଇଯିବ ଏଣ୍ଡ ଗୋଟେ ଷ୍ଟେଟ ହେଇଯିବ, ତାପରେ ଏଇ ସବୁ କ୍ରିଟିସିଜମ ବନ୍ଦ ହେଇଯିବ। ଓକେ, ଇଟ୍ସ ଏ ଭେରି ଫନି ଥିଙ୍ଗ ବଟ୍ ୟୁ ହାଭ୍ ଟୁ ରାଇଟ୍ ଇଟ୍। ଓକେ, ଯେତେବେଳେ ଉତ୍ତରାଖଣ୍ଡ और झारखंड वाला तले पाठ्यक्रम करथिले सेतले यूपी बिहार, इफ यू हैड बीन यूपी और बिहारी देन यू वुड हैव सेड कि नहीं रीजनलिज्म बहुत खराब, आमे मन को सप्रेस कर दो, एमती कर दो, सेमती कर दो, ताको सैटिस्फाई कर दो, सप्रेस करनो सैटिस्फाई कर दो। वंस उत्तराखंड झारखंड एंड छत्तीसगढ़ हैज डेवलप्ड, नाउ देयर इज नो गोइंग बैक। तो एबे आमे कहि कि तारो किछि माने यू कैन नॉट क्रिटिसाइज इट कि उत्तराखंड तो हबार ही नथला, यू कैन नॉट क्रिटिसाइज। सो इन दैट सेंस रीजनलिज्म माने केमती नेगेटिव रु तापरे न्यूट्रल हे जोटे जिंस। But on the contrary, secessionism is always bad. Secessionism आमे केतବେଳେ डिफेंड करिवा नाही, रिमेंबर इट। secessionism कोन, जेतବେଳେ गोटे स्टेट कि गोटे सब रीजनल लेवल गोटे रीजन से कहयो कि आमे गोटे सेपरेट कंट्री हे जा, एटा को आमे केबे भी पॉजिटिव वे रे कहबा नाही, एटा सब बेले आमे नेगेटिव करे, बुझियो। ओके, देन फाइनली दिस पार्ट की जम्मू एंड कश्मीर रिऑर्गेनाइजेशन एक्ट 2019 ने हितला। या द्वारा से माने कोन क्रिएट कले, से माने जम्मू एंड कश्मीर जो स्टेट ता थिला that got bifurcated into Jammu and Kashmir UT with a legislature and Ladakh UT without legislature, okay, without। so ei jo dita part dita ko UT hi gala, union territory hi gala। so why did this happen? Less about regionalism, actually this was main reason was more about security and less about regionalism। security रे कोन militancy और terrorism या को कर्व करे आपी border issue, this is very very important। देखो लद्दाख टा होची चाइना को लागी छी, सेपटे पाकिस्तान को लागी छी कोटा कश्मीर। सो एटा गोटे माने सेटा मास्टर स्ट्रोक बोली भाबी कि समाने एमिदिया डिसीजन नेले कि वी शुड सेपरेट इट सो दैट वी कैन मैनेज इट बेटर सिक्योरिटी इशू पे। बट रीजनलिज्म आल्सो प्लेड रिलेटिवली लेसर रोल। एंड व्हाट इज द रीजनलिज्म एट केमती रिफ्लेक्ट होची? फॉर एग्जांपल इफ यू सी द कश्मीरी कल्चर, that is actually different from rest of the Jammu and Kashmir, that is a slightly different culture। एथरे से मिडिल ईस्ट वाला, मिडिल ईस्ट तो कोन को आवत टर्किश वाला भी कल्चरल इन्फ्लुएंस अछि एथरे किछि। जो इन्वेडर्स माने आस्तिले समानकर स्पेसिफिकली जो मिडिएवल इन्वेडर्स माने आस्तिले तांकर कल्चरल एलिमेंट्स एबे भी समाने प्रिजर्व करि रखछन। सिमिलरली द डिफरेंस बिटवीन कश्मीरी पंडित्स एंड कश्मीरी मुस्लिम्स, that is also one of the outcomes you can write about Kashmiri pandits, gote line likh pariyo। okay, so these are the main reasons for growth of regionalism in Jammu and Kashmir। and finally this act we can say कि देखो हमको फाइनल एग्जाम रे याकू हम क्रिटिसाइज करिया दरकार नहीं, रादर यू राइट कि माने ए स्टेप टा ओवरऑल इट वाज ए गुड स्टेप व्हिच वाज माने मोस्टली फॉर माने नेशनल इंटीग्रिटी और सिक्योरिटी पे ही डिसीजन टा निया इतला। ओके, दिस इज द फाइनल पॉइंट फॉर टुडेस क्लास, रीजनलिज्म इन ओडिशा। ओडिशा रे कोन लिखियो, वेरी सिंपल थिंग, कोसल स्टेट विषय लिखियो, डिमांड फॉर कोसल और कोसल स्टेट, को डिस्ट्रिक्ट गुडा ता भीतर जाउची, बलांगीर, सोनपुर, संबलपुर, बरगढ़। इफ यू सी ए मैप टा मु सेत पे देछि, देखो ए एंटायर दिस एरिया ना, entire this area, now they are demanding for coastal state। these are the buffering states, sorry districts, state coach districts। buffer district ba semti kichi sete besi demand nahi, but the proponents of this coastal state also hope ki a buffer zone wala bhi emti am bhitar ku asibe। and what is the main reason for this thing? Western Odisha versus Eastern Odisha। anyone from Western Odisha wants to say anything? तो मनर कथा बहुत frankly कहि परियो, will not take offense। What do you think are the reasons for the growth of this demand for coastal state? We are not judging you, you can speak। Western Odisha रो केही अछि कि नहीं? No, I don't know, maybe आज आज केही कहया चाहना, ठीक अछि। The point is कि Western Odisha रो main problem हला again sense of relative deprivation, not just deprivation, relative deprivation means eastern और हमर जो coastal belt रे से माने कहउछनी बेसी डेवलप, which is also true, developmental focus entirely बेसी रोज। why? Because political weightage सेपटे बेसी अछि। if you see, consider how many chief ministers are even from Western Odisha, there have only been 2 chief ministers and they are also for a temporary time period, mostly most of the chief ministers have been from the coastal Odisha। this is just one example, most of the budget if you see you will also somehow or the other end up in the coastal Odisha region। so because of this sense of relative deprivation, because of lack of development, This is one of the major reasons. And not that much of language. Language also plays an issue, but not that much of language. Language issue is more related to feelings or cultural identity. ये बेसिस रे भी ସେମାନେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି କି ଆମ ସେପାରେଟ ଲାଙ୍ଗୁଏଜ ହଉ ତାହେଲେ ତାଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ ବହୁତ ଡିଫରେନ୍ସ ଅଛି କୋଉ ଲାଙ୍ଗୁଏଜ ରେ ସେମାନେ କଥା ହେବେ ବୋଲି but this is the main reason. Okay. From other topics we'll take up from the next class. Tomorrow we'll finish this society part. Then Wednesday you have Shubham sir's class again on ethics. Then Thursday economics. From Thursday we'll start economics. Then Friday again Shubham sir's class on ethics. Then Saturday I'll take another extra class on economics. Okay. Or maybe some GS class might be taken. We have not decided yet. Okay. So that's it, guys. No, I mean today we had a very long class. So thank you very much for your patience. We'll meet again. Okay. Take care.